The story begins with the entire city being consumed by flames under a blood-red sky. Amid the chaos, we see people running to save their lives while a sinister voice announces that the days of nightmare are just beginning. From the very flames and darkness, an imposing figure with wings begins to rise, promising even more destruction. The being then reveals itself as a dark angel, and the system promptly classifies it as a level 4 enemy. Without wasting any time, the winged creature starts firing multiple energy blasts, annihilating everything in its path. Watching the scene from a distance, two girls observe all this destruction completely powerless. The redhead is in shock as she realizes that the enemy is level 4, a level of monster capable of wiping out an entire country. Her blonde friend then says she will fight by her side, but the girl instructs her to focus on evacuating the civilians. With determination, the red-haired heroine asserts that she will try to hold the monster, even if it's just to buy a measly minute. Her partner is worried, but the girl with red hair insists that she will find a way to be okay. At that moment, an emergency alert is triggered, summoning all awakened individuals to the local university. The girl reveals she is only a level 3 awakened, but vows to endure as much as she can. Meanwhile, the Dark Angel seems to prepare for a new attack, murmuring indecipherable words. The creature finally advances toward them, and the redhead screams desperately for her friend to run as fast as possible. Suddenly, a dark-haired man tells the redhead to get out of his way. The red-haired heroine is in shock as the man prepares his attack. Without giving any chance for reaction, the mysterious man annihilates the creature with a single devastating punch. As a result of the punch, the Dark Angel turns into a stone statue while the man poses victoriously in front of it. The duo of girls is shocked that the guy killed the monster with just one blow. With a smirk, he comments that it has been a long time since he last saw a human being. Soon after, he asks what year it is, leaving the red-haired girl completely confused. The girl, stammering, tries to ask who he is while the blonde girl seems nervous behind her. Then the mysterious guy asked darkly, and with fear, the redhead replied that it was October 6, 2024. The man looks visibly shocked by the answer, as in his perception only a year had passed. In his thoughts, he says he spent hundreds of years in hell, but here only a year had gone by. With a snap, he realizes that his calculations about the time distortion were completely off. The young man remembers that it was exactly 1 year ago that his entire nightmare journey began. On that fateful day, he encountered his greatest enemy for the first time. His memory takes him back to the fall in a hellish place known as the demon realm of Rigo. Although it was a period of unimaginable trials, in the end, our protagonist managed to emerge victorious. And so, after an eternity, the young man was finally back in his world. The red-haired girl begins to theorize whether he might be an S-class awakened or perhaps a secret weapon of the government. But it couldn't be that, or else she would know, while the young man thought to himself about someone having fallen into another timeline. Suddenly, an armored car stopped beside the trio. Then several agents in bulletproof vests emerged from the car. Various awakened individuals appear on the scene, and the leader orders everyone to take their combat positions. Arriving with the demeanor of someone who resolves everything, the squad leader greets the two girls, and the redhead quickly recognizes him as leader Kim Jung-woo. The leader then touches her shoulder, apologizing for the delay and asking her to leave the rest of them. Jung-woo asks about the threat, but one of his men decides to be the center of attention and tells our hero to get out of the way. The soldier even accuses him of wearing a fake awakened cosplay and gets irritated for being completely ignored. Noticing the danger, the red-haired girl asks the leader to rein in his crazy colleague. Ignoring all the commotion, our hero gives the man an ultimatum of 3 seconds. With his eyes glowing sinisterly, he asks the guy to give him a good reason to stay alive. Visibly nervous, the muscular man draws his dagger and prepares for combat. The red-haired girl desperately says that the dark-haired man had killed a level 4 enemy, leaving her leader surprised and nervous. In desperation, the muscular man thinks to himself that he must kill the other or else he will get hurt. The awakened one advances, shouting the name of his ability, Blade Storm, but is interrupted. Without the slightest difficulty, the dark-haired boy stops the attack with just one finger on the opponent's forehead. Then, with absurd strength, he throws the man to the ground, breaking everything around. Looking at the body lying on the ground, our protagonist coldly declares that the 3 seconds are up. The squad leader is paralyzed in shock and screams, asking what he thinks he is doing to his colleague. The mysterious figure, however, completely ignores him and says it is not the time to worry about him. Then, looking up, he warns that the portal is opening again. He also makes a point of adding that the power of all of them together will not be nearly enough to stop what is coming. The awakened ones around are shocked and terrified by this. The leader can hardly believe what he is seeing, completely paralyzed by fear. From the portal, a colossal monster emerges and is immediately identified as a level 6 enemy. Desperate leader Jung-woo contacts headquarters, warning that an enemy codenamed Red Horn has appeared. At the command center, an operator informs that this creature can eliminate more than 30 million people in a single day. Faced with the threat, the leader uses his powers and shouts for all the awakened in Korea to be summoned. Soon after, the group prepares for battle, aware that they need to buy time even if it costs their own lives. The man in glasses then shouts for the blonde girl to flee with the red-haired girl. While the team of awakened ones bravely advances against the monster, our hero and the blonde girl merely observe. The confused girl does not understand why the dark-haired boy is standing still, doing absolutely nothing. Because of this, she turns to him and questions why he is not helping his companions in battle. The boy simply stares at her with a cold smile and asks why the hell he should do that. The girl insists, arguing that this is also his world and that he has more than enough power to protect it. He then asks her to give him one good reason to bother helping them. Continuing, he says that the weak always end badly and the strong survive, also stating that this is the law that the most powerful must follow. He adds that they must fight for their own lives if they have the capacity to do so. Otherwise, they will just be crushed by the stronger ones right at the moment the creature attacks another awakened one. Seeing all that destruction up close, the blonde girl is completely horrified by the scene. Ignoring the fight, he turns to her and asks where the MUF's office is. Our protagonist calls her useless and simply turns his back to leave. Celine gets angry and calls him crazy for worrying about that now. Then she tries to take her friend away, but the blonde girl refuses to leave. The young woman named Nori stands up and says that this is not how powerful people act. Then she pulls out her swords from the portals, saying that those with power must do something. She charges at the monster, shouting that the powerful must protect the weak. The boy is surprised to see the girl attack the giant beast with her blades. But her attack does not work and the girl is disarmed of one of her swords. With that, the monster opens its enormous mouth to devour the blonde girl in one go. Nori closes her eyes and accepts her fate as a tear rolls down her face. Suddenly, a voice commands the monster to lower itself. With immense brutality, a giant creature's head is smashed against the asphalt. The duo of awakened ones looks at the scene, completely shocked by what just happened. The protagonist now holds Nori in his arms and calls her an interesting girl. With his clothes resembling demon wings, he holds her and says he likes her. The young woman becomes completely flushed, and then the boy introduces himself as Taehyun. He then adds that he will be her master, the great demon lord. The young blonde girl is utterly confused by that sudden declaration. She then watches him, wondering if that boy could really be a true demon. However, the moment of reflection is brutally interrupted by the roar of the monster preparing to attack again. Visibly irritated, the dark-haired boy calls the creature an insignificant being. With a frightening look, he says that thing does not even have the right to open its mouth in front of him. With a single precise punch, he silences the beast using an absurd amount of strength. The impact of the blow is so violent that it makes everything around them tremble. He stares at the monster and complains that the creature's head is arrogantly above his, creating a sphere of energy above the creature. He asks why it does not bow before him. Then the sphere crushes the monster's head against the ground. Watching the scene, the other awakened ones are completely paralyzed by the display of such power. He then looks at the defeated creature and says that now they are on the same level. After that, our protagonist extends his hand and a crystal begins to be extracted from the monster. The purple crystal flies toward him and he catches it with one of his hands. With a hint of disdain, our hero looks at the purple stone in his hand and comments that it is just that. In light of the scene, the squad leader is shocked and wonders if that could be a magical stone. Then the crystal disintegrates into particles of light while the young blonde stares at it, still processing everything. The girl stammers and asks if something happened to him. The demon lord turns to her and simply orders her to follow him, leaving the young woman confused. Completely awkward, she asks what he means by that, but the young man makes it clear that he will not repeat himself. He insists that she has no choice but to follow him, which terrifies the girl. At that moment, leader Jungwoo shouts desperately that he will not allow such a thing. He thanks for the help but asserts that Nori is one of them and cannot be taken by him. With a cold gaze, our protagonist responds simply and directly, "I can." Taehyun then says that he did not ask for permission from anyone and tells everyone to get out of his way. Releasing a powerful aura, he forces all the awakened ones to kneel, writhing in pain. Leader Jungwoo wonders what kind of power it is while our hero calls them mere insects. Irritated by the interference, he decides that he needs to get rid of all of them once and for all. But Nori throws herself in front of him, pleading for the young man not to hurt her companions. The blonde girl agrees to follow him as long as he promises not to harm her friends. The demon lord observes her for a moment and comments that she seems to be quite a fair person. But he notices that it is not just that and perceives something more about the blonde girl. Suddenly, several system screens appear in front of him, revealing all her information. He realizes that she is a dual class, something extremely rare even in the demon world. Despite the poor stats, he believes he can train her very well and declares that she has been chosen. Then he extends his hand to the young woman, who hesitantly accepts the offer. As soon as he touches her, the girl screams in pain, but the young man tells her not to worry. Holding her firmly, he explains that it is just a recording ritual and that it will not be bad for her. With that, a massive red energy rises to the heavens, creating a giant pillar of light. The other surviving awakened ones watch the scene from a distance. They look at the pillar of light and wonder what the hell just happened there. Moments later, the scene shows a young man with purple hair healing leader Jungwoo's wounds and the bodies of the defeated awakened ones. Serena was talking to the rescue team leader Sunho. He can hardly believe that a single awakened one defeated so many enemies and even took someone with him. The girl then replies that she herself can hardly believe it and reveals that the guy's name was Tae-young. She also mentions that the young man was looking for the NWS office, which visibly irritates leader Sung-no. In light of the situation, Serena asks if they plan to go after him but warns that it would be impossible. She explains that no one there would stand a chance against a monster like that while the duo walks in the distance. As they approach a building, he asks if it is there and the nervous blonde girl confirms. In her thoughts, the young woman wonders if she should try to warn about her location. The girl considers sending the coordinates to her companions at that moment, but the young man, as if reading her mind, says that there is no need to warn anyone, leaving the girl frightened. He explains that he knows exactly what she's thinking and that her friend, the redhead, will certainly send someone soon. The Demon Lord adds that even if they came, they would be crushed like ants. Then he turns and warns that the young woman has no way to escape anymore because now she belongs to him. Our protagonist simply orders her to show the way, and the blonde girl, with no other option, agrees. With tears in her eyes, the girl points the way and follows it in silence. Upon reaching a door, the dark-haired boy stares at a photo and calls for his grandmother. He then says that after hundreds of years wandering through demonic hells, he finally managed to return. As he gazes at the photograph, he admits to himself that even after all this time, he has never forgotten her. With that, the boy announces that he is now going to find her, but then Nori pointed at something in shock. She points inside the office, but what they find is a completely destroyed place. Seeing all that mess, our hero is blinded by rage and shouts, asking who was responsible for that. Meanwhile, an armored vehicle approaches the site at high speed. Inside, leader Sung-no informs that he has researched information about someone named Tae-young. The records confirm that the office address and the name match, pointing to the same person. Then the girl with red hair reveals that the boy's full name is Byeonti Tae-young, letting out a laugh. Serena can't hold it in and bursts into laughter upon realizing that his name is, let's say, a ready-made joke. The purple-haired man then explains that according to the data, he is just a normal student and not an awakened one. Suddenly, leader Sung-no remembers a recent conflict between the Daega Guild and the Ilsum. Desperate, he realizes that the situation is much more serious than he imagined. The team in the car realizes they need to hurry because something very bad is about to happen. Angrily, the Demon Lord asks what happened, but Nori becomes nervous. She explains that she doesn't know all the details, but that there was a major dispute between the awakened guilds. The young woman continues, saying that they even tried to stop it, but several buildings ended up collapsing during the conflict. As a result, some people couldn't get out in time and ended up trapped in the rubble. The dark-haired boy falls to his knees amidst the debris, remembering his grandmother. He holds a photograph and calls for her with a look of deep sadness. His mind takes him back to when he was a child, hugging her while she affectionately complained about her weight. The lady worked hard, and the hopeful boy promised that they would have a better home one day. But back in the present, our hero laments, thinking about how excited he was to finally live with her. The blonde girl watches him from afar, feeling all the sadness he emanates. A dark and heavy aura begins to rise from him as the boy asks who did this. Blinded by rage, he questions which unfortunate souls would do this to his only relative. With his anger reaching a peak, he asks what kind of monsters would do such a thing. Suddenly, our protagonist stops for a moment upon noticing something. Leader Sung-go formally introduces himself as part of the White Tiger Intelligence Service. He bows and asks to talk, thinking to himself that he feels a lot of energy coming from the boy, so at least he is Class A. The Demon Lord simply says he doesn't feel well and warns everyone to get out of his way. Sung-no insists, revealing that the culprits are from the Society of the Awakened, but their identities are still unknown. Tae-young then coldly responds, "That's it," and turns to leave, leaving the team leader confused. The dark-haired boy then announces that he's going straight to the Society of the Awakened. Shocked, the team leader asks if he intends to face them all alone. But Serena intervenes, warning that perhaps our protagonist can indeed do just that. Faced with the threat, Sung-no orders his team to advance and stop him at all costs. The squad members complain among themselves, finding it boring to have to subdue some random guy. The boy in the beanie, with a mocking air, says that if he really is an awakened one, he won't have any problems, then throws several stones at the Demon Lord. But they are simply destroyed, leaving no scratch on the boy. The other team members comment that the target seems quite strong. Then another awakened one jumps and attacks the protagonist with a huge weapon. However, the weapon doesn't even tickle the protagonist, who has a blank expression. The attacker is completely shocked as Tae-young holds the weapon. With a single fluid motion, our hero sends the opponent flying away. At that moment, the boy in the beanie screams desperately for no one else to attack him. Our protagonist then uses an invisible barrier to defend against another attack. The guy in the beanie was then pressed against the ground by an invisible force while the Demon Lord ordered them to get out of his way. Seeing the scene, Serena warned that they didn't stand a chance of stopping that thing. With the entire team defeated, Celine said she wasn't joking about him going to wipe out the entire association. Seeing the boys surrounded by a dark aura, the leader wondered how they could possibly stop a monster like that. Suddenly, a hand grabbed the cloak of our anti-hero, trying to restrain his fury. The blonde girl called him master and begged him not to continue with his plan. Then the demon lord questioned if she, as his servant, dared to go against his will. He remembered the recording ritual he performed to imprint his soul onto hers. The boy explained that because of it, the young woman should instinctively follow him, never being able to betray him. But her willpower exceeded expectations, and she argued that there were good people in society. The girl explained that they would fight to the very end to protect everyone, even if considered enemies. She continued, saying they fought for those they couldn't save, and that she understood his pain. With tears in her eyes, the young woman said it was all too sad and that her heart also hurt. The girl then asked him to stop because there were people fighting precisely to prevent more tragedies from happening. Faced with her words, our protagonist calmed down and wondered why he had even returned to that world. His mind took him to a memory of his grandmother saying he didn't need to be the best at school or sports. She explained that by being a good person, he could help many people in need. Moved, the demon lord patted the blonde girl's head and thanked her. The boy continued the gesture and explained that thanks to her, he remembered the true reason for his return. He recalled that the only reason he endured everything and came back was to live by his grandmother's side. Looking at the rubble, he lamented that now it was too late for his beloved relative. He then declared that he would protect that world exactly as his grandmother taught him to do. The blonde girl broke into a wide smile and agreed enthusiastically with his words. But the boy scolded her, reminding her that she would have ceased to exist if not for his mercy. He then turned to the defeated team and said he would no longer go after the society, but with one condition. The team members were confused, so the leader asked him to continue. With a shining object in hand, the boy revealed that his condition was that they find his grandmother's killer within 3 days. The scene shifted to the imposing building of the Regional Intelligence Service headquarters. Inside, a man ran through the corridors while desperately calling for Leader Kang. He arrived shouting at the team leader, angrily cursing him for disappearing. The chief kept scolding him, saying he should have returned to report the situation. Samno apologized and explained that he had been busy cleaning up the mess, while the chief wanted to know how they stop a level 6 enemy. He said he would report the details later, but had something else to tell, leaving the chief curious. Then he saw Taeyem and asked if he was an awakened one. The leader explained that he was a newly awakened they had just found at the scene, and the chief asked if he wasn't registered yet. Then he ordered them to take him for a test and register him immediately, leaving Sumdo and Celine terrified. The demon lord overheard the conversation and, with a mocking tone, asked if they really wanted to test him. He then gave a sly smile, finding the whole situation amusing. The scene shifted to a corridor completely crowded with people waiting. Our protagonist complained about the number of people, but Surian explained that most were waiting for a chance to become awakened. But the protagonist grew impatient and asked if they really intended to make him wait. She grew nervous and said she would check at reception, then thought that if he was forced to wait, something horrible might happen. The red-haired girl ran to reception and said they were from the White Tiger team. Then the staff member confirmed if it was for the power measurement of Mr. Bayante Taeyang. But he pointed to the crowd and explained that many people were waiting to be classified. Then the attendant warned that they would have to wait 1 or 2 hours because there were no exceptions. At that moment, our protagonist's eyes glowed red with fury. A dark aura surrounded him as he asked if they dared make him wait for useless people. The blonde girl noticed the rage and desperately begged her master to calm down. At this, a man in line got irritated and told her hero he needed to wait his turn. But the man was horrified as he felt the immense pressure coming from the demon lord. Looking at the crowd with disdain, the protagonist ordered everyone to get out of his way. At that moment, the receptionist freezes in fear at the terrifying situation. The demon lord states that measuring those insignificant beings is a waste of time while Nori assists a young man in shock. He then orders them to classify him right now if they have the courage to do so. With several people fallen, the chief complains that they sent the young man for a grading assessment, and this happened. Observing the scene, the chief laments the chaos as each awakened individual is very precious. The young blonde girl comments with a smile that they were lucky he only did that. She explains that her master was quite kind for not seriously hurting anyone. At this, the chief wonders who that guy is to cause such extreme reactions in everyone. The team leader then approaches and warns his superior to prepare himself. Now in a testing room, our hero approaches an evaluation sphere. An employee explains that since he is of the magical type, he needs to attack the object. He then asks the young man to use his most powerful attack possible on the sphere. The demon lord finds it absurd to use all his power on a simple magical stone. He decides to use only the necessary power and with a gesture says the word explode. But nothing happens and the young man wonders why the magic infused with mana didn't work. An operator in the control room asks him not to get nervous and to try to relax. Irritated by the situation, the protagonist clenches his fist with an expression of fury. He decides to use brute force and punches the sphere with all his might. As the blow connects, he repeats the word explode with a serious look. Suddenly, an immense explosion of energy is released from the magical artifact. The operator in the control room is in shock as the sphere disappears completely. She nervously thanks him and says they will move on to the next tests, but he interrupts her. The demon lord states that it's useless since no toy there can measure his abilities. He gets annoyed and says he doesn't want to waste any more time and just wants the results. The employee shows the results to her superior while the blonde girl comments that the young man finished faster than she did. The chief analyzes the results, sweating profusely, while the young woman asks about the tests. Then she invites the demon lord to have coffee afterward, but both return their attention to the chief, asking about the results. The screen displays Class S, and our hero finds all of this so boring that he almost yawns. Later, our protagonist and the blonde girl are sitting in a cafe. He takes a sip of green tea and complains that the drink is too bitter. Then the young woman offers her drink and says she can order another without any problem. With that, the young man accepts her drink and takes a sip with a cute expression. He seems to enjoy the flavor and gets a little flushed, finding the drink good. Nori then asks her master what his type is. The young man with black hair replies that he might be of the magical type, leaving the girl confused. He then explains that since he arrived, he has only used a strength enchantment and not his real magic. At this, he remembers a message saying that his abilities were restricted outside the demon realm. With this, the blonde girl is shocked and realizes that magic is a restricted ability in this world. The girl imagines him as a circus magician, but he reprimands her and he can read her thoughts. The demon lord thinks that summoning his castle would be a problem and would destroy the current building. Suddenly, the chief calls him by name and our protagonist turns to see what he wants. The superior nervously announces that the test result was Class S, leaving everyone shocked. He informs them that he is the first Class S awakened in the country, and the young woman is amazed. Soon, the protagonist tells him not to praise him and to get straight to the point about what he really wants. Stammering, the superior says he will explain the whole situation now. However, before the man can say anything, the young man cuts him off and refuses the offer. Desperate, the chief says that if he joins the media, he will gain fame and a lot of money. But the demon lord finds this annoying and says he can make money whenever he wants. He states that they should be grateful he agreed to cooperate, even if just a little. With a serious look, he adds that he will only help if they meet all his conditions. Then the leader thinks he needs to find a criminal quickly, while such a criminal at home mocks that no one could stop them. The black car drives down the road, taking our protagonist and his servant to a safe location. Inside the vehicle, the team leader says he understands and will not announce Taehyun's ranking. He also informs that they will prepare a safe place for the young man and his servant to stay. Watching the car leave, the chief laments that they cannot showcase the first Class S in the country. The young woman then explains that with a Class S, the balance of global power would be completely changed. The superior comments that if people knew about him, they would feel safer in the country. The scene then cuts to the young man and his servant arriving at a luxurious mansion. They walk through a long garden with a pool towards the enormous house. The young blonde is amazed by the size of the house, but the demon lord is not impressed. He says it doesn't compare to his castle, but admits that the place isn't so bad. 3 days later, the leader of the White Tiger team arrives at the mansion for a visit. As he approaches the door, he becomes confused by the noises coming from inside. The leader wonders if what he is hearing is the sound of a fight happening. He carefully opens the door and peeks inside, wanting to know what is going on there. Inside, he sees the training room completely destroyed, with the girl sitting on the floor. The protagonist encourages her and tells her to come at him with all her strength. Obeying the command, the servant grabs her swords and advances to attack her master. The team leader realizes that the two are in the middle of a training session. The blonde girl crosses her swords, preparing for an attack. She jumps determinedly towards her master, ready to strike. Then she tries to attack him from above, while her master calmly observes from below. Nori brings his swords down forcefully on Taehyun. However, he simply holds them, leaving the blonde surprised. Then he throws the girl away with force. She lands on her knees, sliding back as if she were going to counterattack. However, she lets out a low cry of pain, and the young man decides that the training for today has been enough. He says that despite being weak, he is making progress and must continue training without stopping. Then, thinking to himself that to truly be his subordinate, she needs to reach Class S. Nori then reminds him that it was already the deadline he set, leaving Sunlo nervous behind the door. The young woman asks if he is really going to end them, and the young man says he has given enough time. But she argues that those are also precious lives and that he shouldn't do that. The demon lord reflects on her words and says that he hasn't heard something like that in centuries. He remembers the demon realm where life was worthless and it was all about survival. Then he comforts her and says that what he will do is not a senseless slaughter. The young man explains that this is revenge for his grandmother and a warning to prevent it from happening again. He says that even if innocent lives are lost, others will be saved by this action. The young woman agrees, and the protagonist thinks that he has become soft since arriving in this world. The team leader bursts in, shouting that he can no longer stand their conversation. He says he came to deliver something, and the young man complains that he could have called. Embarrassed, the team leader explains that he wanted to make the delivery personally to him. He notes that the girl has changed a lot and wonders if it's because she is the young man's subordinate. Irritated, the demon lord says he doesn't like wasting time, and the leader apologizes. The man hands over a folder and informs that the investigation results have come out as promised. Then the young man opens the report and discovers that the culprits are members of the Ilsum Guild. The guild is an old gang that became awakened after its leader gained powers, but they continue to be cruel criminals who torment the ordinary citizens of the city. The leader explains that they cannot do anything because the guild is affiliated with the association. Soon, the demon lord closes the folder and comments that people like that exist everywhere, and they are lucky. He says that the leader can clean up the mess without getting his own hands dirty. Then he turns to his servant and asks if she understands what needs to be done now. The young blonde looks a bit confused, but soon understands what her master means. He then tells them to wait there because his revenge is finally close. Meanwhile, the leader of the Ilsum Guilds celebrates having conquered another territory. This is Kim Gilte, the leader, and mocks the National Intelligence Service. Suddenly, the building is hit by a huge explosion coming from the sky. Inside, chaos ensues as the guards rush desperately to protect their leader. They quickly exit the building and the furious leader asks who dares to fight against them. In front of the Ilsum Guild building, the members look up at the sky, completely shocked. In the sky, a message of fire appears demanding that they pay for all their sins. With that, the guild members panic and wonder who did this. Frightened, they shout for their leader and point, saying there is something in the midst of the flames. Floating in the sky, the Demon Lord asks if they are the members of the Ilsum Guild. He then orders them to confess their sins and bow until they break into apologies. With a threatening look, he promises that only after that will he end them all without pain. The members of the Ilsum Guild are completely shocked and terrified by what they have seen. The leader pointed at the Demon Lord, saying that he was the one who did this, then declaring that he and his guild would kill him for it. Thinking it is his chance to rise in rank within the guild, the man charges to attack. The guild member shouts insults as the Demon Lord leaps down from above. He looked at everyone with disdain as he fell. Taegyeon landed powerfully on the ground, asserting that this was the guild's last chance, before he stopped showing mercy to them. Frightened, the criminals wonder what kind of person this is in front of them. One of the more cowardly members decides to flee and screams that he is out of this madness. However, the Demon Lord asks who said that fleeing was an option for them, then throwing a metal beam that pierces the fugitive. The leader was paralyzed by the brutal way one of his members was killed. Soon, the Demon Lord says that they could have had a quick end but lacked the courage. Gilte was left speechless, terrified by the monstrous aura of the protagonist. With that, he flees, telling his partners to fight in his place. The dark-haired boy mocks the leader's attitude and talks about how a cowardly leader behaves. He watches the man run and comments on the cowardice of abandoning his subordinates. The boy thinks that this world is no better than the demonic one and explodes everything with his power. The scene shows the aftermath of the attack with the ground and walls completely marked. Inside a room, security measures are activated, closing the windows and locking the doors. The man says that the room is made of magical gems and that normal attacks do not work there. At this, the leader gets angry, thinking this is revenge for a job poorly done. His henchman asks how many men they have and also says he sent everyone away. Suddenly, several guild members gather and say they can defeat a Class A. They then see the invader, and one of the men shouts that he is too strong and dangerous. Realizing that the boy is a high-level awakened one, they all charge to attack him. With a smile, the anti-hero loves the idea and tells them to come at him all at once. He advances into the group and says that they don't even compare to the power he possesses. With that, he easily defeats the guild members, and they scream desperately for help. Hiding in the safe room, the guild leader and his henchmen listen in terror. The two remain silent as the leader looks to the side and seems to think of something. Outside, the boy causes an explosion and asks if that helped at all. He then walks through the destruction towards the room where the two are hiding. With a threatening look, he says that the rats always end up hiding in the end. The henchman is shocked and cannot believe that he defeated so many awakened ones alone. He then crawls to the glass door, then starting to bang on it desperately, but it does not budge, and he screams that he does not want to die. The Demon Lord grabs him by the neck and asks why he does not want to die after taking innocent lives. Then, without thinking twice, he grabbed the man's head and ended it. Seeing the scene, the guild leader trembles in fear and calls the boy a monster. The invader coldly responds that his only goal is the total destruction of the guild. He then stares at the leader and asks for a reason not to end his life right there. The man tries to lie, saying it was self-defense, but the boy knows he is lying. He exposes the lie and says that they were the ones who attacked first without giving a chance. The guild leader is shocked that he knows the truth and wonders if the boy is joking. Then he tells himself that he is the leader of the guild and that he would end the protagonist even if it cost him his arm, then charging at him. He aimed a precise punch at the boy's face, but nothing happened. The leader gets angry when he sees that his punch had no effect. With shining eyes, Taehyung says he would give the man a minute to keep trying. The leader loses his patience and shouts that this was the last straw for him to endure. He threw punch after punch, but they all seemed to hit an invisible barrier protecting the Demon Lord. The boy looked at him with boredom and thought he couldn't lose to trash like that. Then, remembering that the only reason he had returned to this world was his grandmother, the leader prepared another punch, saying that it would hurt, but suddenly his arm was severed from his body. The Demon Lord stood still while the chief screamed in pain, claiming that not even a minute had passed. Looking at the man on the ground, the boy coldly said he had changed his mind. He promised that he would finish him off now and make him feel every imaginable kind of pain while the man begged for help. Then he asked the boy why he cared about their deaths. Desperate, the chief begged for help and offered anything to survive. However, everyone he begged for help had already been taken down by the protagonist. With a look of pure horror, he saw that there was no one to save him. He continued to plead for help. Sometime later, the guild building was cordoned off with police tape. An officer observed the scene and commented that the boy really didn't hold back at all. He seemed worried and said that despite being in trouble, there was another issue. The man explained that the Awakened Association would not just sit idly by. One of the members said that this was not just a murder but a massacre. He questioned how they could simply ignore such an act of violence. In a meeting room, they debated how to punish an S-class awakened. One of the men said they couldn't let taking justice into their own hands become a trend in the country, but the leader of the meeting seemed to ignore the debate and focused on another problem. He changed the subject to something more urgent, which was the recent increase in portals. He continued by saying that there had been a considerable spike lately. Then he detailed that there had been 12 just this week and that powerful monsters had appeared. And the worst part was that no hunter had defeated them, but luckily they had an S-class on their side. He believed the boy would handle it, but he couldn't do whatever he wanted. At that moment, the chief panicked while the meeting leader demanded that the boy apologize for what happened. The man with glasses then realized the seriousness of the leader and apologized. The leader calmed down and said he understood everyone's frustration in this unprecedented situation. He explained that they were dealing with an uncontrollable force and the fate of the country was in their hands. While the protagonist was taking a shower, he observed his servant through a mirror. The blonde girl finished her tasks and decided that now she needed to wash her master's clothes. But when she opened the wardrobe, she was completely shocked by what she saw inside. She realized that all the clothes were the same and complained that the agency had no common sense. With a change of clothes in hand, she went to her master but let out a scream of astonishment. Tae-gyun was drying his hair with a towel and then asked why the girl was screaming. Completely blushing, the girl questioned him about coming out of the bathroom like that. Stammering, she handed the pieces to the boy and asked for permission to leave quickly. The girl ran out of the room and he thought about how reckless his subordinate was. Later, the two were sitting together in the garden of the house enjoying the day. Nori observed him and thought that he had been quiet for days, feeling an emptiness after the revenge. She then reflected on what she could do to make her master a little happier. Suddenly, the girl had an idea and turned to him with an excited expression. With a smile, she approached and suggested that they could go shopping together. He looked at her a bit surprised and repeated her question in his thoughts. The girl said they needed new clothes and the boy seemed to like the suggestion. The girl was all happy and delighted with the Lord's response to go shopping. Noori said she would get ready, but her master said there was a problem. Worried, the girl asked what the problem was and thought of several bad things. The boy then revealed that he was completely out of money at the moment. Noori offered to lend him her money, but he immediately declined the offer. With that, the young man invokes a purple crystal and says that a lord does not borrow money. Holding the gem, he explains that if they sell it, they will have more than enough money. Then, sometime later, the two arrive at a tall building in the city center. The girl explains that this is a trading market for the National Intelligence Service. She continues by saying that not only agents but also awakened individuals negotiate there. As they approach, a smiling attendant greets them and asks what they want to sell. The woman explains that she needs to see the merchandise first to assess its value. But upon seeing the purple crystal, the attendant is completely shocked and speechless. She then nervously asks them to wait a moment while she makes a call. The woman calls Mr. Park and informs him that someone wants to sell a rare gem. She excitedly states that the size of the gem is abnormal. Moments later, the man is talking with the young man and his servant in his office. The man then introduces himself as Park Sunho from the sales division and welcomes them. He wonders what a National Intelligence Service agent is doing there with that man. With that, our protagonist throws the enormous purple crystal onto the table in front of the man. Park Sunho is astonished and cannot believe the size of it, questioning the gem's level. The protagonist then asks what their offer is while the man continues to stare at the crystal and the young man in shock. Sunho apologizes and says that buying a stone of that size requires a national budget. Impatient, the young man takes the crystal back with a look of disdain on his face. He then uses his power to break the giant gem into several smaller pieces. The sales division man looks surprised as the young man asks if that is enough. Park wonders how someone can break magical stones and notes that the piece is worth billions. He says he can buy it, but that it will take some time to gather the funds for payment. The hero feels disappointed and says that the largest trading market in the country does not have money for this. Nori then intervenes and asks if they can at least pay a portion up front. The man says that the situation is unprecedented, and the girl reminds him that they can profit greatly from the stones. With that, she makes a proposal and says that if he pays 1 billion, they will accept it immediately. Meanwhile, the young man stares at the man and wonders how she dares to negotiate like that. Under pressure, Park accepts the offer and thinks that the young man in front of him is a wild beast. Shortly after, the transfer of 1 billion wons is completed and the money lands in Tae-gyun's account. With the payment confirmed, Nori smiles excitedly and says that now they can go shopping. Walking down the street, the girl suggests checking out the master's clothes first, praising her for the bargain. But in the office, the agency man is furious and wonders how those worms dared to do that. He cannot believe they took advantage of him, someone who considers himself part of the elite. Filled with rage, the man grabs his phone and promises to show the true power of money. He then makes a call and says that he has some scoundrels he wants to deal with. Far away, our protagonist and his subordinate enjoy their shopping day happily, when suddenly the sky turned purple and various lightning bolts appeared. Suddenly, his sinister purple energy surged in the city's sky, catching everyone's attention. The girl is super excited looking at the fancy clothing stores in the city. With that, she points to one of the stores and calls her master to go there with her. But the young man tells her to buy something first since he doesn't need anything. The girl immediately denies it and says that today is exclusively for taking care of his clothes. Then the young woman takes her master's arm and invites him to enter the store. She drags him inside, saying that today he will dress well. The young man just watches her in silence, seeming a bit surprised by her attitude. He thought to himself that the more he pays attention to her, the more impressed he becomes. Taekyung looked at Nori's hand holding his fingers. He then continues to reflect that the more he observes her, the more peculiar she seems. The two then arrive at a luxury clothing store called Moral to start shopping. Right at the entrance, a well-dressed employee greets them with a bow. He asks if they are looking for something specific, and the blonde girl excitedly points to the clothes. The subordinate asks to dress her boss from head to toe with the best there is. Meanwhile, the poor young man complains about how boring it is. Meanwhile, the sinister portal continues to grow and pulse a purple energy throughout the city. The store employees announce that they have finished their work. The girl is left speechless and completely amazed by her master's new appearance. With the new outfit, the protagonist comments that he is not used to clothes like that. Feeling awkward, he turns to his subordinate and asks for her opinion on his look. Stammering and all flushed, the young woman exclaims that he looks really, really handsome. She even swears that she is telling the truth and that he looks great that way. The girl then exclaims that she can hardly wait to tell everyone that he is her master. He adjusts the collar of his suit, still a bit uncomfortable with the new clothes. Then he says that they can go, but the girl seems confused by his hurry. She asks if the young man doesn't want to look in the mirror, but he says he doesn't need to. The master states that her opinion is what matters, and now it's time to buy her things. With a red face, the blonde thinks that he liked the outfit and that she got what she wanted. The protagonist urges her to hurry while his partner agrees excitedly. After some time shopping, the two stop at a cafe to have something to drink and rest. With a smile on her face, the girl holds the shopping bags, happy with the result. Suddenly, the young woman's eyes widen as she notices something strange in the city's sky. She looks up, startled by what has just appeared right above them. The duo stares at the enormous purple portal that has suddenly materialized over the city. All the people on the street stop what they are doing to observe the frightening phenomenon. The blonde asks what that is, and her boss confirms that a gate has just opened. But the young man comments that it is a type of portal he has never seen before. Inside the portal, a bizarre red creature begins to slowly emerge. A giant, terrifying eye watches the city from within the dimensional rift. The girl panics and says that a gate violation without warning is terrible. With a pale face from fear, she realizes that this is a completely unknown portal. She explains that portals like this bring disasters or very powerful enemies. Then, remembering a frightening creature from one of those unknown portals, the girl looked down as the protagonist began to speak. Meanwhile, the people on the street continue to look at the sky in complete despair. Then the young man says that this creature will be stronger than any enemy he has ever faced. The red monster continues to slowly emerge from the purple portal in the middle of the city. Desperate, the girl calls someone and warns that they are in serious trouble. She tries to explain that an unknown gate is about to fully open. At that moment, the creature's arms emerge from the portal, terrorizing the crowd watching. But the protagonist stares at the monster with a challenging look and invites it to come. The head of a red demon with sharp teeth finally appears in the sky. With a terrifying roar, the creature fully materializes in front of everyone. With the monster's appearance, some buildings begin to collapse and chaos ensues. Nori screams on the phone that the gate is open and the situation is out of control. People run desperately through the streets while shouting for others to get out of the way. In the midst of the confusion, a mother loses her small daughter, who is left alone and scared. The person on the phone asks the blonde what she said about evacuating the civilians. The voice on the cell phone asks if she is listening, but the young woman is in shock at the scene. She informs that her master will evacuate the civilians and says that everything will be fine while waiting for reinforcements. But the demon lord smiles with a dark look, excited by the new threat. His partner looks at him worriedly and calls him with a tone of fear in her voice. With his eyes glowing red, he gives a sinister smile full of excitement. The young man recognizes the creature and says that it is an arrogant and insane dragon beast. He remembers a fight in the demon realm where he ripped one of their throats out. Looking at the portal, he thinks that the time has finally come to fight someone worthy. A magic circle appears and he celebrates the chance to fight with everything against a strong enemy. Desperate, the girl screams her master's name, trying to get his attention. With her plea, the young man stops invoking his powers in shock. He then turns to his subordinate. With tears in her eyes, the girl pleads for her master to help her with the evacuation. He looked at the blonde girl, shocked as she pleaded again. Meanwhile, the little girl continues lost and crying in the middle of the destroyed street. The protagonist then looks down and sees ants walking near his feet. The protagonist recalled in his mind as he asserted that the world was too weak while opening a door. With the doorknob turning to ashes, he says that nothing in this place could handle his power. Then seeing his partner, he also says that even the monsters here were no match. He looked at the young blonde in front of him, but when he tried to touch her, she shattered like a mirror as he stated that not even people could handle his powers. He continued to say how fragile that world was. He saw it as a sandcastle full of ants. Back in the present, people run desperately, while he remains standing in the middle of the chaos. With his eyes glowing red, he admits that the weakness of everyone there irritates him. The boy remembers the demon world where the only rule was for the strongest to devour the weak. For him, feeling pity for the weak was a luxury and defending them was a fool's task. But this little world broke that natural law and it bothered him deeply. He then grew tired of suppressing his power and decided that it was enough of living uncomfortably. After all, this was the first real opponent he faced in many years. As he floated surrounded by his dark aura, he shouted that now no one could stop him. Desperate, the girl cried out for her master, bringing him back to reality. With a desolate face, the young woman pleaded again for her boss to please help her. In tears, the girl clasped her hands and asked him to save the innocent people. In the sky, the red monster roared once more, releasing its destructive energy. With that, debris from the department store began to fall. She looked up and wondered if she could break all the falling pieces. Then the blonde jumped into the air with her blades and tried to intercept the debris. Spinning in the air, she managed to destroy some rocks, protecting those below. But the young woman panicked upon realizing that she couldn't stop all the debris alone. At that moment, she screamed as rocks were about to fall on a mother and her child, but an invisible barrier protected both. Nuri looked at the scene in surprise. The protagonist had used his magic to protect the mother and child. Then he exploded the rocks that were about to fall on the civilians. The subordinate was surprised by her master's act while looking at him. With a calm smile, the boy finally told her to evacuate the people from the area. He floated in the air surrounded by a powerful aura while his partner watched him from the ground. He reflected that he had reached the point of ignoring even his own subordinate. Surrounded by flames, the boy declared that he would not be an incompetent lord. With that, the young woman thanked her master and ran to help evacuate the civilians. The girl blushed and felt happy as she fulfilled the order she received from her boss. Wielding her blades, the blonde shouted for everyone to follow her and leave that place. She pointed the way for the civilians, and the boy thought that he was doing this because of her. The dark-haired boy thought that a few seconds of work wouldn't hurt to help his partner. But standing in the middle of the destroyed street, the protagonist said that there was a catch. He glared at the creature in the sky and said that he didn't like that thing above his head at all. At that moment, dark and shadowy wings began to emerge from the back of our protagonist. With an intense red glow, the wings fully opened, and he began to float. The boy ascended to the skies with his new power, ready to face the threat head-on. Looking at the monster in the portal, he commented that the creature seemed to be trapped there. The giant eye of the beast stared at the demon lord with an expression of pure rage. With a smile, he told the creature that he would help it get out of there. Then the boy grabbed the dragon's snout and punched it with supernatural strength, sending the monster into space. The people and his partner looked up at the sky, shocked by the scene they witnessed. Our hero said that up there they could fight without any interruptions. With a colorful glow, he ascended to the skies, smiling as he said he was going. The crowd watched a beam of light rise toward outer space. In an instant, the two appeared in space, floating above planet Earth. The red dragon quickly looked around for its opponent. The dark-haired boy appeared in front of it, asking if the beast had awakened and said that now no one would disturb them. With his eye glowing, he commented that this seemed like a very ancient dragon. Then he said that he hoped the dragon wouldn't make a fool of him. He remained silent while the creature roared at him. Suddenly, a screen appears with information about the creature called Kuros. The notes say that the beast got lost and violated the rules due to a contract. He wonders if the dragon made a contract and broke the rules by giving up on itself. At that moment, the creature opens its mouth and a blue energy sphere forms inside. The monster fires an energy beam, and the young man knows that this is not good at all. Floating in space, he knows that behind him is the human world he needs to protect. He understands that if that breath hits the planet, it will be a bloodbath. The young man says he can easily prevent that, but coming here to fight would be pointless. So he decides to face the attack head-on. With that, the energy hits him squarely while an invisible protective barrier shields him. The dragon then stops its attack, thinking it had hit the young man. However, seeing that he remains still in the vacuum of space, completely unharmed by the blow, the protagonist then stares at the monster and complains that he had just bought those clothes. The creature becomes furious at the audacity and prepares another, even larger energy attack. But with a confident smile, the young man charges at the beast at high speed. He then lands a powerful punch directly on the side of the ancient dragon. Then he strikes another blow on top of the creature's head. The red beast screams in pain for the first time, feeling the power of its opponent. Looking at his flaming fist, he comments that after so long, that felt really good. Our protagonist is happy to find something that doesn't break with just a simple touch. The creature roars furiously and prepares to bite the young man. The young man then touches the dragon, seemingly analyzing the texture of its skin. With that, the beast invokes a magical shield to defend itself from the brown-haired boy's strikes. The protagonist merely observes it with a serious and analytical look on his face. Irritated, the monster roars once more, showing its sharp fangs to him. The demon lord then kicks the barrier with all his strength, but nothing happens. With a serious look, he realizes that this is a dragon that can use magic. He notices that the creature created a barrier that doesn't completely block attacks, but will still delay the end of the battle. The young man admits that he still doesn't control the magic of this world to break the defense. But with a smile, he says that there is nothing he can't break with brute force. He finds fights boring, so he decides to use a special item from his arsenal. In that, the brown-haired boy opens a purple portal and begins to pull something from inside. His eyes shine as he reveals his weapon, the Dragon Blade Ascalon. Wielding the legendary sword, he asks if the monster can recognize it. Our hero reveals that the weapon was made from the spine of the demon dragon Zikma. The monster snorts upon hearing about the origin of that legendary sword. As he tells the dragon that this weapon is the worst it could face, the dragon breathes his blue fire in the direction of the young man. He then asks if the creature would like to test its power. With a single strike, the young man cuts the energy beam in half effortlessly. Holding the blade, he comments with a smile that its power is very good. Furious, the creature charges once more to try to devour its opponent. But the brown-haired boy is faster and escapes the monster's mouth. Then he readies the blade, pointing it at his opponent's chest. With a precise strike, he plunges the sword into the creature, which flew backward from the impact. With a smile, the young man warns that with this, it will no longer be able to use magical tricks. He remained in an attack position while observing his sword in the enemy's chest. Our protagonist says that now it's his turn and throws a right hook at the dragon. With the power of the young man's blow, the creature is sent flying far away. Meanwhile, in a space station, two people are working, when suddenly, the dragon passed in front of the window, leaving them shocked. The creature clings to the structure with all its strength. With a smile, Taekyung admits that his opponent is quite skilled. He then asks what the next trick the beast will use against him while purple flames cover him. The brown-haired boy recognizes the level 6 explosion magic called Flare. He questions whether the dragon thinks it will hit him with that. The dragon attacks him, but he says that his opponent is very mistaken. The young man reveals that the beast cannot hurt him because his magical resistance is at its maximum. The monster is shocked, and the protagonist asks if that is all it can do. He says that if that's the case, it's time to fight only with brute force, no more tricks. With a wicked smile on his face, he prepares to deliver the final blow. Then the two opponents ready their final attacks. On Earth, a red-haired girl and her partner help evacuate civilians from the rubble. Meanwhile, we see the little blonde holding a giant piece of concrete. With it, she manages to protect several civilians who are panicking about the situation. At that moment, another young man in a vest uses his powers to heal the injured. A man in glasses observes all the destruction around him with an air of leadership. Suddenly, a message alerts that the portal is shrinking its reaction and will close. Soon after, another notification confirms that the gate situation has been resolved. Relieved, the squad leader turns to his team to understand what happened. He then questions the little blonde about the whereabouts of her master and the enemy. The girl looks up and points to the sky, saying that both of them ascended. The man in glasses is completely confused by the answer and points up as well. He puts his hand on his head, trying to process that absurd information. Then someone loudly questions if such a thing could really be possible. The B-class hunter named Chun Wooman questions whether it was possible for the enemy to have simply disappeared into the sky. He yells at the girl, thinking it's a lie, but she insists that it's the truth. The bespectacled leader tries to calm Chun Wooman, saying that everyone is in shock, but the association hunter shouts that he is not there to clean up their mess. At that moment, a powerful voice interrupts the discussion and commands everyone to stop. The leader of the White Tiger appears and reprimands Chun Wooman for his behavior. He threatens to file a formal complaint, and the association hunter glares at him with disdain. He continues to ask if the other thinks that all awakened ones have the same power, while Nori looked at the sky. Suddenly, everyone looks up, frightened by meteors falling on the city. People panic upon seeing the fireballs coming in their direction. Someone shouts for everyone to run and seek shelter immediately from the threat. However, the meteor grows wings and stops falling for a moment. But then it crashes to the ground with force, creating an explosion. The shockwave from the explosion violently throws several people away. The agents are also hit, and the girl protects her face with her arm. The little blonde is surprised for a moment, but soon opens a relieved smile at what she saw. Amid the flames, our hero emerges without a scratch. With a radiant smile, the blonde girl starts calling for her master. Our hero then comments that next time he should come down more slowly, while the girl shouted for him. The association hunter is shocked by the appearance and wonders what that is. The young girl runs to her master while the other man questions the enemy. Then, looking at the young man, the man wonders who he was. At that moment, the squad leader praises our hero's performance, saying he did a good job. But he says they need to talk and summons a magical subordinate. He then orders his invocation, Uriel, not to let any sound escape the area. With that, a blue energy barrier forms around them, isolating the location. The young man then realizes that the leader's subordinate is a being from the realm of fantasy. Samyo explains that because of the hero's ability, the situation has become more complicated. The leader reveals that due to the performance of the dark-haired man, everyone now knows of his power. He says that the world will know that a Korean Awakened One defeated a level 7 enemy. The man continues to talk about politics, but the protagonist cuts him off and tells him to stop. He says he hates wasting time more than rudeness and asks to get straight to the point. The blue-haired agent reveals that they might need to expose the existence of the dark-haired man. The young blonde looks at her master, worried about what might happen now. Meanwhile, outside the barrier, people take photos and comment on his feat. Our hero thinks to himself that in this world of ants, this was inevitable. The squad leader is frustrated because he knows it's impossible to persuade that monster. But to the surprise of the man in the suit, the protagonist simply agrees with the idea. With his arms crossed, he says that the government can reveal whatever it wants about him. The blue-haired man asks if he is sure, and the hero tells him not to make him repeat himself. However, the young man warns with a serious look that he doesn't want any kind of trouble. Then he raises his hand and fires a pink energy pillar that shoots up to the sky. With a smile and shining eyes, the dark-haired man says that should be enough. The two men are shocked, and he reveals that this is compensation for everything. Before everyone's eyes, a giant purple mana crystal appears floating in the air. Far away in another country, a man desperately calls for someone named Mr. Anderson. Mr. Anderson, who is a blonde man, reads a report attentively in his hands. A panting soldier approaches Mr. Anderson and informs him that the operation has been canceled. The blonde man asks why, and the soldier says that a level 7 enemy has been defeated. The soldier continues his report, looking at a tablet with the most shocking information. He reveals that the one who defeated the beast was the new class S awakened from Korea. Chun Moomin is shocked, wondering what kind of guy that was. He says that the hero fell with the monster's head and took a mana stone from there. Then it is stated in the narration that humans have two reactions when they see something they cannot understand. The first reaction is simply to accept what they saw, but the second is to deny everything. With a mocking smile on his face, the association hunter chooses the second option. He points to the group and starts shouting that all of this cannot be real. The man says that they almost fooled him, and that it is all just special effects. At this, the blue-haired agent tries to calm the situation, but the other refuses to listen. The squad leader says he knows it's hard to believe, but this is the purest truth. Then he reveals that the person in front of them is the new class S awakened of the nation. Then he looks at the young man, still not believing it. Furious, the hunter pushes the agent and shouts that the young man being class S is a joke. He accuses the intelligence service of fabricating an awakened to intimidate the guild. The man shouts that no one would believe the story of a monster dead in the sky. With that, the young blonde gets furious and screams that her master is not a fraud. The blonde says that without her master, Sewell would be destroyed and that the man should be grateful. But the rude hunter points at the young woman and yells at her for interrupting the conversation. He turns to the protagonist and criticizes the agency for not teaching respect to its servants. With that, our hero says that the man's shouts sound like a mosquito bite to him. His subordinate looks at him, surprised by her master's protective attitude. Then the dark-haired man releases his aura and questions how the man dares to be rude to his servant. With his eyes glowing red, he says he is not generous enough to ignore this. The man began to tremble in fear, while the young man said that this was a warning. He tells the frightened hunter to never speak ill of him or his subordinates again. Otherwise, the man will face the most painful end he can imagine. The hunter feels small in the presence of the demon lord. He fell to the ground, terrified, while the young man turned his back and walked away with a bored look. He warns his servant to leave, leaving her surprised. The young woman responds that yes and follows her master, who is already walking away. The blue-haired agent merely observes the scene while the other man cried in fear on the ground. With his hand on his head, the suited agent says he cannot imagine the outcome of all this. Then an official announcement informs that Mr. Taehyung Byante is the first class S of Korea. In a press conference, a man announces that he resolved the gate incident. Back at the office, the agent informs that the official announcement of his status has been made. He smiles and says that ironically, the situation will not generate any problems. At this, the young blonde explains that her master is one of the 9 class S awakened in the world. She continues by saying that now no organization in the country would dare to challenge him. Then the squad leader, looking at his tablet, explains that this was their biggest concern. He explains that without high-level heroes, Korea was at the mercy of other nations. Japan and the United States tried to interfere, but the protagonist resolved everything on his own. However, the agent warns that other countries will not remain idle and will try to eliminate him. Therefore, the suited man suggests that they need to make as many allies as possible. He reveals that the Wolf Team Awakened unit from the USA requested to visit him. The young man says he is not interested, and the agent is surprised by the missed opportunity. With that, the dark-haired man crushes the can and says that even the strongest in the world are the same to him. The protagonist says he is irritated because his rare day off has been completely ruined. Then he tells the agent not to bother him anymore with such irrelevant matters. In that moment, the young woman worries about how she can persuade her master to change his mind. Suddenly, the blonde has a brilliant idea and seems to have found the solution. She remembers a moment when her master showed interest in something specific. With that, the girl interrupts the agent and asks about the Wolf Team from the USA. She then mentions that the world's strongest awakened Anderson is part of the team. The man in the suit confirms, surprised that the visit is indeed from the Wolf team. He continues by saying that Anderson, the warlord, will personally come to the meeting. The agent reveals that the man specifically requested to meet our hero. With a smile on his face, the dark-haired man finally finds the situation a bit interesting. The blonde smiles because she knows that the only thing that excites her master is a strong opponent. Then the protagonist changes his mind and says he will meet the mysterious man. At a landing strip, a private jet arrives bringing someone worth his time. From the aircraft, two men in suits descend and one of them comments on the grand reception. One of the men warns the other not to get too excited and not to cause trouble this time. Anderson agrees with the man's statement and says they are visiting an ally, so they should behave. However, he reminds them that everyone there already knows one thing. The Pentagon has set certain objectives for their team on that important mission. With that, he asks everyone to keep this in mind and to control themselves for now. The strong man punches his own hand while agreeing with the young man. With the special team Wolf team gathered, the blonde thinks that when the time is right, they will do as they please. Already inside the plane, one of the agents reaffirms to his colleague that they are not there to play around. He then explains that the Pentagon has given them two missions, and the first is to recruit the new Class S. With that, he pauses with a serious look and begins to talk about the second part of the plan. And the second part of the plan is nothing less than testing the strength of the new hero from Korea. He tells the warlord that he would take care of the rest while he should focus on the mission. But the blonde seems to have a small doubt about what might happen during the meeting. So he completes his thought by saying what if his offer is refused? He would completely crush our protagonist. Meanwhile, our hero simply enjoys his drink calmly without worrying about anything. He complains that the guests are late and that he is already getting bored waiting. In that moment, the young man sees on his cell phone screen a TV special about the hunter Ryan Anderson. The report says that the man is the strongest in the world and has defeated enemies with his sword Excalibur. The dark-haired man finally seems interested and thinks that the guy is one of the best fighters in the world. At that moment, his blonde servant runs to him to deliver a very important message. The young woman announces that the Wolf team has arrived and our hero opens an excited smile. The protagonist then puts on a dark smile at the news. He stands up and says to go ahead while the young woman asks him to follow her. The blonde is excited to meet her former idol, but corrects herself by saying that her master is number one. The dark-haired man then thinks that this world probably does not have body modification technology yet. He remembers a surgery he underwent in the demon realm, and that is why he is no longer a pure human. The young man faced many strong beings there, but none of them were real humans. His servant guides him through the door, and the hero thinks he is curious about something specific. He gives the girl a pat on the head while thinking about how strong she is. On the other side of the door, the Wolf team waits and the warlord observes the young man approaching. The dark-haired man walks calmly toward the two men waiting for him near a large window. With shining eyes, the two stare at each other and our hero completes his thought about how strong a pure human could be. At that moment, the suited agent approaches and greets the protagonist, saying it's good that he has arrived. He extends his hand and introduces himself as John Homan, the director of the National Intelligence Service. Our hero simply stares at the man's outstretched hand without showing any reaction or courtesy. With a cold look, the young man simply ignores the handshake, leaving the director in a rather awkward situation. Meanwhile, the members of the American team just watch the scene with looks of disdain and interest. Nori tries to apologize for her master's behavior, but the man says he already understands him. The man in the suit smiles and says he understands because the young man seems more interested in someone else. Then he turns and formally introduces the Wolf team from the United States. One of the members steps forward and introduces himself as Jensen, a Class A awakened from the team. The dark-haired servant is surprised by his perfect Korean and wonders if it's a translation spell. However, the young blonde is worried about how her master might react in this situation. The hero stares at the man in front of him, who is thinking about the young man. Looking at the indifferent expression of the dark-haired man, the American thinks they are completely disregarded. Then he says that the protagonist was strong. He was strong enough to take down the dragon from before. At this, the American agent gets irritated by the arrogance and calls the young man a stuck-up kid. He pushes his colleague aside and tells the young man that he was giving him too much attention. With that, the strong man grabs the protagonist's hand, forcing a handshake between them. He leans in and provocatively asks if Korea doesn't value education. The American agent squeezes his hand and questions if a handshake isn't basic courtesy. The blonde servant's eyes widen in panic at the agent's provocation. With an arrogant smile, Agent Brad thinks he will crush that fake Class S himself. But suddenly, the man's smile disappears, and he becomes confused by what he is feeling. At that moment, the young assistant lowers her head, already fearing what is about to happen. During a handshake, our hero begins to crush the other man's hand. Brad is caught off guard and starts to feel immense pain. Then, to try to free himself from the grip, the strong man invokes his power called Explosion. The blonde girl calls for the director in search of help as the situation spirals out of control. The other agent, Jensen, shouts furiously at his partner, calling him an idiot for starting the fight. With a cold look, the protagonist simply says one word, disappear. At that moment, the American agent's fireball begins to vanish. Brad is shocked, not understanding what happened to his power. The hero then prepares to land a solid punch on the American. However, the protagonist ends up punching nothing. Brad had been teleported by a blue portal, while someone announces that they would stop there. The leader of the American team draws his shining sword and stands in front of his companion. He apologizes for his colleague's rudeness, but says that the hero's actions were not the best either. The blonde then suggests they leave the situation as it is, and the dark-haired man agrees with the idea. Agent Brad falls to the ground while holding his injured hand. With that, the protagonist and the warlord stare at each other, and the tension in the air is almost palpable. The blonde orders Jensen to take the idiot away, and the agent obeys, leading his colleague away. The director thinks this will cause a big problem, while the blonde girl gets excited about the confrontation. The young assistant offers to guide the agents to a healer, and the man thanks her for the help. With that, she leads the two agents out of the room, leaving the master alone with the American leader. Anderson apologizes once again and says that his colleague is tough, but must have learned his lesson. The dark-haired man says he doesn't waste time with weak people and tells the blonde to get straight to the point of the conversation. The warlord finds it amusing that the hero called a Class A weak people so naturally. However, he admits that the young man is right because just blocking one of his punches caused all that damage. The blonde thinks that if they become enemies, the hero will be a headache, and then he goes straight to the point. He finally makes the offer and asks if the protagonist wants to join them in the United States. The hero immediately declines the offer, and the director panics because the US wants to steal his Class S. The American leader is surprised, but the hero says he won't repeat himself. The protagonist then provokes him, saying that deep down the American also desires this. Releasing his aura, he says that both are curious and suggests they fight right there. With a confident smile on his face, the warlord accepts our hero's challenge. Meanwhile, in another room, a healer is tending to the injured hand of American Agent Brad. The man in the suit seems furious and complains to his colleague for putting him in that situation. But his colleague Jensen reprimands him, saying he caused all of that with his attitude. Brad gets irritated and shouts that the Korean hero disrespected the best team in the world. The young assistant watches as Brad argues with his partner, wondering how he can remain calm. Jensen simply responds with indifference and asks what the problem is with all of this. He then remembers that their opponent is a Class S and one of the strongest that exists. For such a powerful man, arrogance is a right, and he needs to understand that. The agent continues by saying that the team is only strong because of their leader, Anderson, and not because of him. He says that Brad is only there because of his skill and tells him to stay in his place. With clenched teeth, the man says he knows all of that but cannot accept it. He stands up and shouts that he will never recognize that Korean hunter as an equal. The agent says it is impossible for a Class S to be born in such a small country, and his colleague asks him to stop. Brad shouts that if the team had another Class S, they wouldn't be going through this humiliation. Then finally, Nori interrupts him and says that he was lucky it ended only that way. The two men look confused at the blonde girl. With a serious look, she says that if her master wanted, he would have already dealt with both of them. The two agents are surprised by the girl's boldness and stare at her in disbelief. But Agent Brad starts to laugh loudly and asks what that little girl is saying. He approaches her and mockingly asks what a child like her could possibly know. The blonde ignores him and says she knows one thing, and it's about how strong her master is. She then confidently declares that the Korean hero is the strongest in humanity. Brad starts to laugh even louder and finds it funny that she calls the guy master. With a smirk, he says she's free to believe in her own illusions. But then he says that soon her reality will be shattered. Brad then states that at this moment, Leader Anderson is putting an end to her master's pride. He continues by saying that the warlord will destroy that Class S once and for all. Back to the fight, the American leader prepares to attack with his sword. The blonde then points at his opponent with his beloved Excalibur. The director, who was watching the clash, wonders how this had happened. He observes the fight from a control room on screens that show a shipment. He wonders if the fight was arranged on purpose to test American firepower. The man remembers that even though it is a duel, it is still a battle between two Class S. So the director just hopes the building doesn't collapse after the fight finally ends. Back to the confrontation, the warlord stands still for a moment with a confused expression. He then asks the protagonist if he doesn't need a weapon. Then the dark-haired one replies that it would be foolish to fight bare-handed against someone like him. The system analyzes the opponent's abilities and shows that he has level 3 celestial swordsmanship. With that, the dark-haired one suggests it would be better if both used swords in that fight. He thinks that his own swordsmanship is level 8 and wonders which weapon he should choose. At that moment, an arsenal of magical swords appears floating around our hero. The young man remembers a special blade he received from the Demon King as a symbol of loyalty. The purple energy around him intensifies as he decides which weapon to use in the fight. The American is shocked and realizes that the young man opened a portal using a magic system. With a confident smile, the hero says that his opponent has made him wait far too long. The hero chooses an imposing blade and says it is worthy of his opponent and is called the Blade of Thunder. The warlord smiles confidently and thanks the young man for praising his sword, Excalibur. The blonde admits that he thought he was a fighter, but it seems the young man has a talent for swords. With a smile, the young man reveals he is a mage but tells his opponent not to worry about that. He He then states that he will fight using only his swordsmanship and nothing else. At this, the American leader gets irritated and thinks the young man's words are full of arrogance. Without wasting any more time, the US hunter prepares with his weapon in hand. He shouts that he will make the dark-haired one regret everything he said as he charges at the protagonist. The blonde's blade creates a giant wave of energy that advances, destroying everything in its path, but the young man dodges with a leap. In the control room, the director is shocked and shouts that this is just the power of his sword. The attack causes immense destruction at the site, and the director worries about the damage. He thinks that with such power, a level 7 enemy would be defeated instantly, and this is the best technique. However, floating unharmed was the demon lord, who then praises the warlord's attack. The blonde is incredulous to see that the young man managed to dodge his deadly attack. Realizing that he dodged effortlessly as no debris hit him during the strike, the American leader becomes furious and tells himself that he will wipe that smile off the young man's face. Without hesitation, the warlord charges again with a series of quick attacks. But our hero seems to be enjoying the fight and praises his opponent's determination. He then prepares his own sword and says it's time to take things to another level. At that moment, the American hunter feels a dangerous energy coming from the protagonist. With a swift movement, the dark-haired man lunges at the blonde, leaving a red trail in the air. The warlord is thrown forcefully against the ground and screams in pain from the impact. The blow is so strong that the American hunter is injured and the situation looks very grim. Our hero stares at him and thinks that Anderson is the strongest of humanity and cannot give up. He then hopes that the fight doesn't end there and that the blonde will get up to continue the battle. On the ground, the warlord is impressed and thinks about how strong his opponent really is. Then he remembers an enemy he faced in the past known as the Bone Collector. In a flashback, we see the American hunter fighting against a giant, terrifying creature. The monster was level 5 and had bones so strong that the battle was extremely bloody. It was after defeating the beast that he became a Class S and forged his sword Excalibur. Back in the present, the American leader declares that his blade is indestructible. He thinks that as the wielder of such a powerful weapon, he too cannot be broken. With that, the blonde picks up his sword from the ground. Our hero watches everything with a smile and says that it's very good to see. The warlord acknowledges the strength of the dark-haired man and says that from now on, everything will be different. He declares that he will fight with the intent to kill, and the protagonist responds that he is looking forward to it. Meanwhile, in the control room, the director panics and shouts for them not to do that. The American leader then invokes his power massacre. Then his weapon begins to shine intensely as he wields it. The young man feels the powerful vibration coming from the blonde and finds it all very interesting. The American hunter thinks that his ability does not only cause the vibration of the blade, then he delivers a devastating blow that creates an explosion of white energy at the site. Without giving the hero time to react, the blonde charges with impressive speed. But the dark-haired man smiles and thinks that this is great and that he needs even more power. With a confident smile, he asks his opponent to show all his abilities. In the control room, the director despairs and says that this no longer seems like a duel, then thinks that if someone gets seriously hurt, it will become an international incident. He shouts that they must stop the two young men. Then the chief and the red-haired girl agree. But the man with glasses explains that both are Class S and that only one can stop the other at this level. With that, the director is despondent and says they can only hope that everything ends well. Celine says she thinks the Korean hero will be fine in the end. She explains that he knows he needs to consider the environment and won't destroy the place. But at that moment, a gigantic explosion occurs near the control room. The red-haired woman feels embarrassed and thinks that she might have been wrong about him. The other man thinks that the young man has been protecting Korea, so it's a fair assumption. The red-haired girl says that her real concern is for the American leader. Back in the fight, the warlord seems scared of something. The protagonist creates a red arc of light with his sword. Our hero observes the destruction, and the director fears that the entire building might collapse. The dark-haired man thinks he wants to see his opponent's full power, but the building won't hold up. In that, the American hunter tells himself that he is the strongest of humanity and no one surpasses him. He says that the young man is not an exception and charges to stab him. The protagonist says that his rival is too focused on the battle and would love to fight more. But he also realizes that the weaker beings in the building are in danger because of this, so he appears on the other side of his opponent. Startled by his appearance, he swung his sword to strike the dark-haired man. However, Taehyung calmly and seriously holds his sword. With a grim look, he asserts that this is not the right place to continue the fight. The two fighters glare at each other again, and the tension in the air is almost unbearable. The American leader sensed the frightening aura of his opponent, which left him scared. At that moment, the warlord realizes he is in mortal danger and becomes alert. The protagonist's red energy rapidly advances toward the warlord. The blonde questions whether he truly felt fear because of that blow from his opponent. He cannot believe that Anderson, the strongest man in the world, felt fear during the fight. Angrily, the American hunter shouts that there is no way that can be true and refuses to accept it. With that, he charges forward with a powerful wind attack aimed at our hero. However, the dark-haired man easily stops the blow using his purple and mysterious energy. The US leader is completely shocked and wonders what just happened. Then suddenly, his hand gets trapped inside a black hole. He screams in pain, not understanding what is happening. Our hero then says that arrogance is a privilege only for the strongest. He calls the blonde a weak man who arrogantly proclaims himself the protector of the world. The protagonist adds that his rival cannot even protect himself. With that, the American hunter is slammed hard against the concrete floor. In the control room, everyone is desperate about what just happened. The hero stands over the fallen body of the warlord who has finally been defeated. With a victorious smile, the protagonist reveals that the name of that move is back smash. Far from there, the vibration of the fight is felt, and people on the street look at the building in fear. In another location, a man in a suit and a blonde girl also feel the tremor and become alert. The man smiles at the situation and tells the girl that the battle has finally begun. He then taunts the young woman, telling her to say goodbye because her master is going to get beaten by Anderson. With an air of superiority, he continues saying that the boy is on his knees begging for his life. But the girl becomes furious and says she cannot stand by listening to insults about her master. The suited man is shocked by her energy, while his colleague merely observes in surprise. Jensen analyzes the girl and thinks she seems strong, but only a Class B. The man in the suit shouts, asking if the young woman wants to fight, and his colleague finds it interesting. The girl responds that yes, believing it is her right to maintain a dominant attitude in this situation. At that moment, she remembers when her master advised her to always be strong and imposing. He told her not to underestimate her opponents, but also to never back down from a fight. Back in the present, the blonde summons a huge sword and says that the man will regret it. The suited man becomes angry and cannot believe that a little girl like her will actually attack him. But then, in panic, he screams for help from his colleague while other people run out of the room. The uniformed man tells his colleague to stop making so much noise and to act calmly. The suited man agrees with him, but the blonde girl does not waste time and attacks from behind. But when she was about to execute her attack, a blue aura emerged. She screams as the blue aura stops her attack. Jensen then asks if she was really that angry. He offers to apologize for Brad's rudeness and asks her to stop the fight. The girl becomes furious and asks why he is telling her to stop when it was the other one who started it. She complains that he insulted her master and didn't even think to apologize for the offense. With that, the young woman declares that Brad needs to be punished, pointing one of her blades at him. The man stood still and unresponsive for a moment. Then, becoming excited, he says that since she started it, they will finish it. With that, the man releases his own blue energy and prepares to fight the girl. The battle begins with the girl charging at the man. Returning to the previous fight arena, our hero appears at the location, holding the unconscious American hunter leader over his shoulder. Then he lets the blonde fall to the ground. The hero tells them not to worry because he didn't kill him, but he will need medical help. The director and his colleagues feel relieved and grateful that Anderson has not been eliminated. The man comments that Taegan really defeated the most powerful awakening in the world. He then says that with the strength of the dark-haired man, their country can become the strongest of all. Filled with ambition, the guy claims that they can surpass the USA and China with this help. But the protagonist interrupts him with a cold look and tells him not to even think about it. The hero explains that he fought Anderson out of interest and not for political fights. With a severe warning, he tells the director not to try to use him for his own ends. The young man asks not to be bothered anymore and turns to leave the man behind. Back in the hallway, the dark-haired man seems thoughtful after arriving at the site of the other fight. He looks at the ceiling and notices that everything is covered with huge, sharp ice spikes. On the other side, the girl is panting from her effort in the fight, but she doesn't give up and continues to fight against Brad, who mocks her sword. Jensen observes the fight and thinks that Nori is not an ordinary fighter despite her appearance. In the midst of the battle, Brad creates a circle of ice and shouts that he will turn the girl into a cube. Several sharp ice crystals fly towards the young woman as she charges forward. The man in the suit then orders her to freeze, and the girl is caught off guard by the magic. Ice begins to form on her body, and the blonde tries to resist with her sword in hand. But she screams in pain as her opponent's power gradually immobilizes her with ice. The guy laughs at the situation and asks what it feels like to be frozen while she suffers. He mocks her by asking who is punishing whom now, and the girl glares at him in anger. In her thoughts, the young woman apologizes to her master for not being able to punish those who offended him. Defeated, she admits to herself that she has no way to win that battle against Brad. Seeing the situation, Jensen asks his colleague to stop because they are going to get into trouble. At that moment, the circle of ice is shattered by a mysterious hand that appears out of nowhere. Before he can react, the man in the suit's mouth is grabbed by the hand. Our hero appears, holding the man by the face with a cold and threatening expression. The girl and Jensen look surprised at the sudden arrival of the young woman's master at the scene. With a furious look, the protagonist reflects the girl's face in his red eyes. The man in uniform screams desperately for his partner and curses our hero as a bastard. But the protagonist ignores the shouts and squeezes the man in the suit's face even harder. Then, with a brutal movement, he spins the guy's body and throws him forcefully against the ground. His red eyes shine with a terrifying fury, showing that he is not joking around. An explosion of red energy devastates the hallway with uncontrollable fury. The hero angrily questions how he dared to touch something that belongs to him. Then he turns to the other guy and with a deadly look asks if it was him. The man in uniform is shocked because our hero should have been defeated by Anderson. Furious, the protagonist repeats that they dared to hurt what is his. The young man threatens them, saying they will pay with their lives, and the officer is shocked by the truth. But before the protagonist could continue, someone stepped in front of Jensen. Nori stepped in front, saying that she was fine so that he wouldn't continue with his objective. The young woman stares at him determinedly, and he looks at her with his eyes still filled with fury. Seeing his apprentice awake, the hero seems to calm down in the midst of the destroyed room. The girl falls into his arms, still with ice on her body. With tears in her eyes, she tries to explain herself, but he interrupts her, saying that's enough. The master comforts her, saying that she did well and that now he is there to take care of her. With that, a golden light emanates from his hand, and he begins to heal his apprentice's wounds. The girl is surprised to feel the energy coursing through her body and her wounds disappearing. The hero returns to the officer and says that the girls saved their lives at that moment. With the young woman in his arms, he orders the two to disappear from the country before he changes his mind. Alone in the hallway, the man reflects that they lost the title of the strongest to the devil. Sometime later, a narrator explains that Team Wolf has returned and the reason has become a mystery. Sources say they met with our hero, and a man with glasses is suspicious. This is Kim Unsuk, who complains about not having had the chance to talk to the young man first. The subject lies on a sofa, deep in thought, planning his next move. With a smile, he says he can't pretend he knows nothing and decides to take action. Meanwhile, a mysterious woman in the darkness says they need to find him. In another location, a red-haired girl says it's time for him to start moving. She seems somewhat irritated with the situation while a movie plays in the background. As Nori laughs, the protagonist complains that it is boring. The blonde questions why they just moved, and Celine already wants them to move again. The woman feels a bit awkward and laughs nervously, unsure of how to respond. Outside, a crowd of reporters and photographers waits for some news. The woman explains that our hero's presence there has become public knowledge. She reminds him that he didn't want to be disturbed and suggests a secret island for him. With enthusiasm, the girl promises a new house and begs the young man to take a look. The protagonist ponders on the sofa and considers her offer for a moment. In that, the blonde girl gets super excited about the idea, and her master looks surprised. The apprentice says she has always dreamed of living on an island while he asks if that interests her. Seeing that she has said too much, the young girl apologizes. The redhead panics, thinking she's offended the hero and that she won't leave there alive. But the young man accepts the proposal, leaving the woman completely shocked by his response. Then the protagonist stands up and tells them to go move to the new place. Moments later, they arrive at a paradise island with a huge mansion on top. The trio stands on the beach, observing the island that will be their new home from now on. The apprentice is amazed and says that the island where they will live is very beautiful. The red-haired woman explains that they bought the place and built a secluded resort. She concludes by saying that the place has everything and that all of it is for our hero. Our hero looks at the island and tells the girl that the place is not bad at all. The red-haired woman feels relieved and says they are happy he liked the place. Then, informing them that she has something to share, the redhead takes a letter and explains that she received a cooperation request from the US. In the letter, the American government apologizes and proposes a defense alliance. She explains that if a very strong enemy appears, the two countries can help each other. Moreover, if the young man accepts a mission from them, all costs will be covered. The details would be worked out later, but the final decision is entirely up to our hero. The protagonist thinks he doesn't care about the US, but the apprentice still seems irritated. He then thinks that an enemy like Anderson could be interesting to defeat. With a smile, the young man says it would be fun and agrees to the alliance proposal. The woman looks confused, and the hero confirms that he accepts the cooperation agreement. Relieved, the redhead thanks him for his cooperation and seems much calmer. Next, she suggests creating a new team of Awakened with him as the leader. The two talk in the background while Nori just listen in surprise. The young man thinks that if they compete against each other, his apprentice's power will grow. He then agrees to form the team, but says he will choose the members himself. The woman gets excited and says she has a boat ready to take them to the island. The apprentice says is a dream coming true, and the young man says he can hardly wait. The young girl complains that they could have built a bridge to walk over, but the protagonist responds that it is not necessary, leaving the girl confused. In a swift motion, the master picks her up and jumps toward the island. The redhead is shocked by the scene and watches the two leave, not understanding anything. Flying through the skies, the hero takes his apprentice to their new and luxurious home. Meanwhile, on the island, a suited manager hurries the employees because they will arrive soon. Suddenly, the manager hears a strange noise and looks up, not understanding anything. Then our hero majestically lands with the girl in his arms, surprising everyone there. With a look of admiration, the young girl thanks her master for bringing her flying. The employees are left speechless while the apprentice gets excited about their new home. Seeing everyone's reaction, the hero asks if they happen to arrive too early. The manager quickly composes himself and says that, in fact, they had already been waiting. The man introduces himself as Go Chang-suk, the manager of the place, and promises the best service. With a sly smile, the protagonist seems to approve of the butler's attitude. With that, the butler invites them to enter the mansion and see the facilities. The young woman is amazed by the interior of the house and says it looks like a luxury hotel. The master finds the place decent inside but seems to be waiting for something more. Then the young man challenges the butler to show what they can really offer. The manager introduces the chef and the team, assuring that their new master will be satisfied. And so the duo enjoys a banquet and even has fun with some video games. The apprentice has fun on the beach playing ball with one of the mansion's staff. Meanwhile, the hero relaxes on a lounge chair and the butler asks if he is satisfied. Looking at his phone, the young man admits that life there is not bad at all. On the screen of the device, he sees a message notification come in. With a smile, he thinks that things are going to get fun from now on. Suddenly, a helicopter approaches the island and begins to land on the lawn. With that, the hero and his young apprentice look up to see who has arrived. From the helicopter descends a man in a suit who says it has been a long time. He thanks the young man for accepting the offer, and the girl greets him politely. Then the man says he would like to introduce someone to the duo. A woman appears, and he introduces her as Lee Yujin, the newest Class A awakened. The newcomer looks at the dark-haired man and wonders if he is really the man from the rumors. She watches him drink something and thinks if that is the famous Class S awakened. The girl is clearly disappointed with what she sees and wonders what that is. In her thoughts, she calls him a bum and questions the presence of the girl by his side. The young woman then reprimands the newcomer, saying it is rude not to greet. But the woman dismisses her and says a child should not be there to interfere. Irritated, the blonde retorts that she is no longer a child and gets quite angry with the woman. The redhead complains to her colleague that she wanted to meet a real awakened, not that trash. Impatient, the protagonist tells the two to leave if they are just going to waste his time. The man apologizes, saying she is new and ignorant, but the hero finds that amusing. He stares at the woman and says that as a Class A awakened, she has the right to be arrogant. Yujin is confused by the comment, and he continues saying that if she is powerful then, she should at least know how to recognize the difference in power between her and her opponent. With a threatening look, he says that if an ant attacks a man, it will be crushed. The girl is terrified by the overwhelming pressure she has never felt before in her life. The young man then scoffs while looking at her with disdain. He then says he will leave things as they are for now and watches her from a distance. Frightened and breathless, the woman thinks that was a test and that she almost died. The man apologizes once more, but the protagonist says it is fine because he is intrigued. The protagonist then tells the woman to follow him and she is surprised by the order. He also calls his subordinate, who asks in surprise if she should go too. Outside, the master tells the two that he wants to see what they are capable of. The blonde brandishes her weapons and complains that she doesn't like being treated like a child. Confidently, she says she is strong enough to fight alongside her master. The redhead responds with a smile and tells the girl to be careful as well. The young man says they will have to fight with everything to see who's the strongest there. Then the woman releases a red aura and agrees to fight with all her strength. In that moment, the Class A Awakened activates her ability to copy and harness powers. Seeing the scene, the hero smiles and thinks that the two will indeed give their best. The redhead prepares for battle, saying she will use her transformation abilities. The apprentice stares wide-eyed, unable to believe what is happening there. In the midst of dark smoke, a demonic silhouette begins to rise from the ground. Watching from a distance, the redhead's colleague admits he has never seen this ability of hers before. Then the woman reveals her final form, transforming into a red draconic monster. With a smirk, the protagonist analyzes and understands what the Awakened's power is. He sees her stats and realizes that the girl's attributes are nothing special. The dark-haired man reflects that this metamorphosis ability is different for each individual. Even so, he admits with a smile that the result exceeded his expectations. The master never thought she could transform into such a high-level being. Completely astonished, his disciple can barely form a coherent sentence. She then looks at the creature's horns and a memory comes to her mind. The girl recognizes that monster as a red horn from the university portal. Seeing this, the hero smiles as an old enemy seems to have returned to haunt them. He turns to the young woman with his swords and questions her about what her next move will be. The transformed adversary mocks the girl and asks why she is standing there in fear. The adversary continues the provocation, asking if she is afraid of the enemy who traumatized her. But the girl grips the sword's hilt and firmly states that she is not afraid at all. With a determined look, a blonde asserts that she is actually happy for this opportunity. She fills herself with blue energy and declares that she will finally avenge the people who died. The creature is surprised by the young woman's reaction as she charges forward to attack without hesitation. Then the apprentice dives toward her enemy with her sword shining intensely. The force of the clash is so great that the mansions on the entire island begin to tremble. Inside the house, the men look at the ceiling, frightened by the intensity of the tremor. One of the staff members asks the butler if the building will hold up, as it seems like it will collapse. Calmly, the manager says that the construction can withstand it and that they better get used to it. He adds that this kind of thing will happen quite frequently there. The transformed woman is shocked by the strength and speed of her small opponent. She then creates an energy sphere and confidently claims that she can stop the attack. Using the enemy's power, the redhead fires a red blast toward the blonde. The disciple, however, manages to agilely dodge the blow, keeping her focus on the fight. Then the apprentice uses the momentum to spin in the air and attack with her two swords. But the creature dodges and lands a spinning kick on the blonde girl. The impact is so strong that the girl is thrown to the ground with force. Without giving her time to recover, the redhead flies at full speed toward the young woman. The two then exchange a series of rapid blows in a festival of lights and sparks. Next, the woman concentrates a new red power sphere in her hand to attack. She fires an energy blast at her opponent, sending her flying into the air. Nori screams in pain when she is hit and injured. The creature warns the blonde to be more careful next time while preparing another sphere. Without wasting time, the redhead launches an even more powerful attack against her rival. Watching everything, Summo is impressed and says that she used the same skill. A giant wave of red energy advances to engulf the defenseless apprentice in the sky. The energy explodes with devastating force, creating a large cloud of dust. While the man in the suit is stunned, our hero seems to be enjoying the spectacle. Breathless, the adversary says that this happens to those who underestimate her because she is Class A. The transformed woman looks up, confused by what she saw. The apprentice was unharmed, so she uses the enemy's head as a trampoline. With a quick movement, she positions her sword for a final and decisive attack. The two stare at each other with intense gazes as the strike approaches its target. Observing everything, the master seems to have noticed something, and a slight smile appears on his face. Then with a shout, he declares that the clash is over. The sword was inches from the redhead's neck as she stares at the blade tense. With the fight over, the protagonist intervenes and says that the training has been sufficient. The disciple promptly responds to her master while the adversary remains on the ground. Back in her human form, the redhead reflects that even with superior status, she was defeated. The master approaches his apprentice and holds her chin with an approving look. The woman admits that the defeat was caused by the overwhelming difference in experience between them. She then thinks that with him, she can become stronger and catches the young man's attention. But the hero declines the request before she even speaks, leaving the girl in shock. He pats his disciple's head and says that the redhead is like a baby taking its first steps. He continues by saying that he has no desire to train her, leaving the woman disappointed. But the young man admits that she would be a good opponent, and that if she wants, he will give her a chance. The girl is completely surprised by the proposal and can hardly believe what she heard. The protagonist then turns to the other man and asks if he hasn't felt the danger already. The suited man is confused and asks what he was supposed to have felt. With that, the man's cell phone rings and he answers the call with a serious expression. On the other end of the line, a desperate voice warns that the city of Osaka has been destroyed. In the sky, we see several planes heading towards the disaster site at high speed. Inside one of them, our hero and his companions are seated in a private jet. The disciple then asks her master if it wouldn't be faster for him to fly alone. The young man retorts by asking if the blonde runs instead of using a car where she goes out. The other woman questions why he isn't nervous since they are risking their lives. At that moment, the man in the suit stands up with a tablet and says he will explain the situation. He tells them that an unknown gate appeared in the middle of Osaka an hour ago. Summo shows a hologram of the city being attacked and says it has been annihilated. The girl is in shock as he reveals that all contact with the local elite has been lost. The suited man continues explaining about the enemy that emerged from the portal. He reveals that the monster is level 8 and the woman is terrified by the news. The young apprentice asks if her colleague is okay, thinking she is feeling sick from the flight. The girl then inquires if the other isn't afraid of the strongest enemy reported. But the apprentice smiles and says it's scary, but it will be worth it because they will save people. With a confident look, the girl tells her companion not to worry about anything. She then points to the master and says they have him by their side to help in the fight. The dark-haired man reflects that the monster is stronger than the dragon he has faced before. Meanwhile, in the city, the creature that resembles a giant spider observes the chaos. The monster then feeds on one of its victims amidst the rubble of the city. Back on the plane, the pilot announces that they are 5 minutes away from their destination. Upon arriving in the area, the warning is given for everyone to prepare to descend and fight. With a determined look, the hero stands up and announces that he will go ahead of everyone. Then the young man walks to the plane's door and without hesitation, jumps into danger. He dives in free fall with the wind blowing through his hair and his wings. The blonde warns that she will jump too and asks the other woman if her parachute is ready. The redhead replies that it isn't, and her colleague scolds her because that was taught in the academy. The blonde then helps the girl fasten her seatbelt correctly for the jump. Li Yujin reflects on how nervous she is and wonders if she will be useful in the battle. But her colleague says she is just used to it, and that the woman will be fine because she is strong. Hearing this, the newly awakened girl looks surprised at the young apprentice. Then she thanks her with flushed cheeks and a small smile on her face. At that moment, the apprentice makes a smug face and says that obviously, she is the strongest there. Then the two position themselves at the plane's door, and the girl announces that they will jump together. The woman closes her eyes and sweats coldly as the countdown begins. But at 3, the blonde simply pushes her colleague out of the plane without mercy. The girl screams in desperation as she plummets in free fall towards the ground. The two fall together, and the redhead screams with the strong wind messing up her long hair. Near the ground, the hero has already opened his wings and is observing the destruction of the city. With a look of disdain, the young man seems unconcerned with the shouting of his companions. He analyzes the giant spider monster that is in front of him. The protagonist then floats and opens his portal, pulling something from inside. Withdrawing his sword, he prepares for an attack and says he will give a worthy greeting. Then the master unleashes a powerful energy blast towards the creature. On the ground, a Japanese awakened named Koharu is frightened by the creature in front of her. The woman is face to face with the creature, calling it a monster. Then, closing her eyes, she accepts her fate and prepares for the end. But the hero's energy attack begins to approach from above the spider. With a look of pure shock, the Japanese girl can hardly believe what she sees. The blast explodes on top of the creature, saving her and creating a cloud of dust. In the air, the apprentice informs her colleague that they will land using the power of their boots. The blonde then wields her two swords from within the portals, preparing for action. She lands in front of the Japanese awakened and protects her with her two crossed swords. Thus, she protects the woman with purple hair from the impact of the blast aimed at the spider. Then the blonde turns around and asks the girl on the ground if she is okay. The young woman then introduces herself and says that they are the reinforcements that came from Korea. The spider creature, however, seems to have been unaffected. Looking at the protagonist, the boy is a bit confused because his attack did not cause the damage he expected. He analyzes the monster and comments that it is indeed a very ugly anomaly. The boy then admits with a smile that he has never seen anything like that before. At that moment, the status window reveals the name and divine attributes of the giant creature. The status screen also reveals that the creature got lost due to a mysterious contract. With a smirk, the protagonist seems quite confident about the current situation. Then, floating in the air, the boy asks if the creature in front of him is an exiled god. But the protagonist reveals that he is also an exiled god like his opponent. Wielding his weapon, the dark-haired boy prepares to test his adversary's strength. With an excited smile, he charges forward, saying he will see how strong the creature is. The boy then dives at high speed toward his monstrous opponent. He faces the creature's many red eyes with a confident smile on his face. With his weapon, the dark-haired boy delivers a powerful blow, cutting through the air toward the enemy. The attack causes an explosion that raises a large cloud of dust throughout the city. As the impact approaches, one of the women screams to be careful while the awakened Japanese girl is in shock at the scene. Quickly, the apprentice grabs the girl and pulls her away from the impact of the attack. The two Koreans look at the situation ahead of them seriously while Koharu looks astonished. With a trembling voice, the woman with purple hair asks what that was. Meanwhile, the giant spider is being attacked from all sides in front of them. The blonde reveals to the shocked Japanese girl that the winged man fighting is her master. Then the purple-haired girl asks, confused, if that awakened one is not an enemy. The young apprentice smiles and asks if her master is not amazing, leaving the Japanese girl speechless. She then tells her not to worry about the spider because her master will handle everything alone. But when the blonde offers her hand, the purple-haired girl tells her to stay away. Standing up, Koharu complains that the blonde is no better than a Class C from Miss. Then she shouts at the girl that she doesn't need her help and that she should get out of her way. At that moment, the transformed redhead calls her disrespectful to the people who just saved her. The creature continues the provocation and says that she is no better than her blonde companion. But the reddish being comments that they should not be talking at that moment. The two girls then get startled as they notice something approaching them. The giant spider creature was still intact despite the various attacks from the protagonist. A window reveals the name of the monster called Young Atlak Nachai, and it roars loudly. The women then position themselves facing the enemy with apprehension. Nori agrees and says she would like to teach the girl a lesson right there. However, at that moment, they had to fight for their own lives. The spider creature roars as it prepares for the attack. The master dives from the skies at high speed toward the creature. At that moment, the giant spider shoots a huge, sticky web from its mouth to trap him. The hero is then caught in mid-air and becomes completely ensnared in the web launched by the enemy. With his whole body wrapped in the web, the boy seems unfazed by the current situation. The web is then pulled forcefully by the giant creature toward the ground with the hero. The impact with the ground causes a large explosion, raising a lot of dust all around. Amidst the smoke, the boy frees himself and curses the monster as an irritating bastard. He then grabs his sword but realizes that his weapon cannot inflict any damage on the enemy. Then the protagonist admits that at this rate, he will never be able to win. The spider creature then roars in celebration of its apparent overwhelming victory in the fight. But with his eyes glowing red, the master smiles and says he has already decided what to do. A red aura surrounds him as he warns that he will show what he is truly made of. The hero announces that for the first time in this world, he will appear in his true form. He then takes on a demonic form with horns and faces the anomaly before him. A gust of wind is then created in front of the multi-eyed creature. Both the blonde and the transformed redhead look surprised at the scene. Holding one of his opponent's legs, the demon lord challenges him. If the spider was truly a god, he would fight the demon and survive. With his sharp claws, the anomaly attempts to land a fatal blow on the protagonist. The protagonist then reveals his red demonic wings and prepares to counterattack. He makes a strong push against the ground, breaking the asphalt beneath him. Then striking the creature's chin violently, he sends it flying backward. The creature then falls to the ground, turned upside down. It looks up and shoots its webs in the direction of the protagonist, but the master is faster and dodges the webs flying toward his enemy. With a smile, he says he will test if the monster can withstand his powerful punches. Then a sequence of rapid blows hits the enemy's body squarely. Seeing that his punches had no effect, he observed the spider for a moment. He then admits with a smile that his opponent's resilience is truly impeccable. But the young man questions whether those eyes are strong enough to withstand his attacks. Then with determination, he lands a powerful punch on the eye of the spider god, releasing energy from there. The spider creature lets out a shrill and deafening scream. The women, upon hearing the power of the scream, covered their ears with their hands. Floating in the air, the protagonist observes the result of his total display of power. Taking advantage of a moment of weakness, the protagonist swoops down toward the creature. In his dive, the demon lord tears off one of the spider's legs. With the leg in hand, the young man says with a smug smile that everyone has a weakness. He then comments that the monster withstood his punches but wants to see if it can withstand this. The protagonist then lowers the leg against the enemy like a stake against a vampire. He seems satisfied with the result of the blow, but then purple smoke begins to emanate from the spider. More purple smoke pours from the spider as it lets out another shrill scream. Then the young man protects his face with his arm, surprised by the strange smoke. The purple smoke begins to envelop the protagonist's body, which seems to be affected by it. He realizes, irritated, that this is not a common poison and could be a big problem. He reveals that this is his annihilating poison. Seeing the situation, the apprentice decides to join the fight to help her master in trouble. Without hesitation, the girl jumps toward the poisonous monster to attack it with her weapon. The awakened Japanese girl thinks that even if they couldn't defeat the enemy, they couldn't let the world know they were helped by a weaker country. So she takes the moment to activate the processing team. The blonde then delivers a powerful blow that hits the poisonous creature squarely in the air. Suddenly, the master shouts for his subordinate to get out of there as fast as she can right now. She warns her red-haired partner, who looks confused. At the same time, the spider creature continues to release its deadly poison all over the place. The transformed woman is surprised and asks if that was poison. She complains that the blonde shouldn't have said so earlier, while both flee from there. The Japanese girl gets scared and asks, confused, what is happening since she did nothing. Nori then grabs her as they flee from the poison, taking her along. With the Japanese girl on her shoulder, the blonde warns that if she wants to live, she must get out of there. With a serious look, the master also orders his apprentice to leave immediately. He comments that the poison could even melt her skin, and that it must be the poison of the gods. However, the hero is not intimidated and prepares to show his true power. He then pulls out his hand, which is now on fire from inside the portal. Enveloped in flames, he asks if the creature's poison can withstand the breath of a dragon. The flames then form a powerful whirlwind of fire that advances against the enemy. In the face of the attack, the giant anomaly seems to retreat in fear of the young man's power. The protagonist mocks the being that claims to be a god but feels threatened by his fire. Flying toward his opponent, he calls him disappointing and prepares his attack. The winged man then unleashes an immense blast of golden flames against the creature. But the spider monster does not stay still and prepares a sphere of purple energy to retaliate. The hero's fire attack was approaching as the young Atlak prepared to counterattack. Then the spider god fires its purple energy light. The light pierces through the golden flames and flies toward the demon lord. The creature's purple energy surpasses the flames and pierces the protagonist's body in midair. He spits out a bit of liquid while the apprentice screams in despair at the horrific scene. The blonde screams the name of her master, who is being pierced by the enemy's attacks. The hero comments that the monster used a spiritualized poison to try to kill him there. He reveals that this is the poison of the gods and few can survive it. But with a smile, the young man says he is a very bad opponent for the venomous creature. Then he warns that the poison is useless against him as his chest begins to shine brightly. With his hand, he pulls the poison stakes out of his body without any fear. The dark-haired man reveals that he has Hydra blood and can nullify any poison with his power. The spider creature is completely shocked to see that its attack did not work. The winged man then prepares to deliver a powerful counterattack to his opponent. He charges at high speed towards the anomaly to end the fight once and for all. The young man strikes the monstrous being with a blow that causes a great explosion of light. At this, the apprentice smiles proudly and the transformed redhead is shocked by her master's power. Before the defeated enemy, the protagonist announces that now it is time to end everything. In his demonic form, the hero prepares to deliver his final blow to the opponent. He tears off all the legs of the giant spider with his demonic agility. The Japanese girl watches the scene in shock, unable to believe what is happening there. At this, the creature screams in pain as it writhes from the attack of the winged man. Then the giant anomaly is completely defeated, falling headfirst onto the asphalt. The protagonist observes the result of his attack with a calm and satisfied look. He throws the legs of the defeated enemy to the ground. Then he lands on top of the creature's head, walking between its eyes. With an energy sphere in hand, the master comments that the fight was very fun, but he warns the creature to die and unleashes the energy into the middle of the spider's head. With the final blow, the spider explodes completely, ending the battle once and for all. Suddenly, a pink magical stone emerges from the remains and the young man curiously picks it up in his hand. He finds it strange because gems are cores of power created by strong demons. The dark-haired man comments that it wouldn't be surprising for a gem to come from a mere weak dragon, but he concludes that the creature was a fallen god because a perfect being would not create this. The hero deduces that the creature's state is due to a contract with someone very powerful. He understands that this cannot be taken lightly, while his subordinate looks seriously at something. The blonde and her colleague have been surrounded by awakened Japanese. The pink-haired girl explains that Japan's reputation will suffer if they know that a weak country helped them. With a sinister smile, the Japanese girl declares that is why the blonde and her colleague need to die right now. The transformed woman gets angry and remembers that they were singing a different song when they were being attacked. Nori then asks if they are really going to betray them after saving their lives. Kaharu smiles and says that it is not betrayal because they were never on the same side. At this, the apprentice becomes indignant and says that they came to protect and now want to kill her. The antagonist screams that she is an awakened one from Japan and is just protecting her reputation. Then she warns that they should not have interfered, and that is why they now need to disappear. They aim their purple light spears at the duo of heroines. The pink-haired woman asserts that without the awakened Class S, they can handle both of them. But suddenly, the protagonist appears, landing firmly in front of the duo, the impact of his landing throwing debris at the others. The Japanese team is surprised, shielding their faces from the impact. The antagonist is frightened, not understanding what the hell just happened when she saw what it was. The hero then calmly asks what is happening in this whole situation. He warns that he will resolve this quickly because he is very offended by their attitude. The Japanese girl becomes irritated and thinks that if the hero took any longer, they would have won the fight. Yujin explains the situation and says it is simple because they saved the lives of those men. But now that they are embarrassed by the situation, they want to eliminate that because of it. With shining eyes, the young man asks how they dare to hurt his people and commands them to stop. The Japanese team suddenly begins to be pushed to the ground by an invisible force. They wonder what kind of power that is as their bodies cannot move. One of the men feels as if an invisible hand is crushing him against the ground. One of them says that the S-class is beyond them, but the pink-haired woman tells him to shut up. The girl warns that reinforcements are on the way and that even the hero won't be able to handle all of them. She adds that the best awakened from Japan will arrive at any moment to fight. The antagonist then shouts for her team to keep fighting so they can buy more time. The man says he was going to let it slide because he respects others' dignity, but they insist. With a dark aura, he threatens to erase them from existence so that no one knows they were there. Meanwhile, the apprentice runs worriedly towards her master, stopping in front of him to prevent him. The young woman then asks him not to do that, as it is unnecessary to reach that point. The apprentice tells the Japanese girl that even though she was betrayed, her will to save people hasn't changed. She then proposes a one-on-one agreement to resolve the situation between them right there. The blonde explains that if they win, they will leave, but if they lose, they will remain silent about everything. She asserts that in any case, she will handle this alone without her master's help. She explains that if he gets involved, many people will end up getting hurt. At this, the draconic creature questions why they should care so much about them. With a pleading look, the young woman asks her master to allow the duel to happen. The man finds the girl's courage interesting and decides to let her fight alone. He promises in the name of the Demon King that he will not interfere in the outcome of the confrontation. The pink-haired woman gets irritated, but her companion says that this is an opportunity. The young man explains that they can use the duel to buy time and asks her to trust him. Then the swordsman advances and says he will not be intimidated by the awakened Korean there. The Japanese warrior faces the apprentice while the others watch the beginning of the combat. With a smile, the master asks his subordinate to show the results of her training. The young woman positions herself for the attack, preparing for the start of the duel with her opponent. The apprentice runs so fast towards the attack that she appears as a blur to the spectators. Without giving her opponent time to react, she performs several attacks with her swords and stopping behind him. Both had serious looks after the attack and the opponent seemed unscathed. But suddenly, the warrior starts to cough as he feels the effect of the blonde's rapid attacks. The draconic being observes the scene with a satisfied smile at the outcome of the fight. With the enemy on the ground, the blonde announces with a serious look that she has won the duel. The pink-haired woman is shocked and cannot believe that the girl actually won the fight. With a smile, the master tells the Japanese girl that now they are finally even. He comments that it is good to see how much she has improved and that he will fulfill his promise now. Then he warns the enemy to leave if she values her life before he changes his mind. The Japanese girl becomes furious and screams how Korean awakeners dare to insult them that way. With her team behind her, she vows that they will never leave there alive after that humiliation. Then the antagonist orders all of her men to kill them without hesitation now. Seeing the scene, Yujin seems irritated and complains about the Japanese team's attitude. The master places his hand on the young woman's head and tells her that she has done enough for today. The apprentice looks at her master, who strokes her head while seeming worried about the situation. Surrounded by a red aura, he says he doesn't even want to use his sword against that scum. Suddenly, a dark and red energy forms a gigantic tornado around the hero. The Japanese team and their leader are completely shocked and frightened by the immense power. The massive whirlwind of energy then advances and sucks in all the members of the enemy team. The dark energy completely envelops the enemies who are caught in a huge tornado. In this, all the power concentrates into a small red sphere in the protagonist's hand. He absorbs the red sphere, closing his hand while looking around. Then he observes the scene of destruction he caused, saying that everything is clean. The master says there is nothing more to see there and tells his team that they can go home. The young woman then calls for her mentor, while the draconic creature watches them from afar. The draconic being thinks that the hero managed to do all that alone without any help. As the man walks away, she thinks that it's a good thing she is on the same side as him in this. On TV, a news report shows the results of the level 8 enemy attack in Osaka. The news informs that many Japanese awakeners disappeared during the fight. In a press conference, the Japanese government thanks South Korea for their help during the battle. Back in a calmer place, an older man approaches and asks for permission from the group. The gentleman hands over a box and says it is a message from Mr. Seo directly from Japan. The box is placed on the table in front of them as they watch. Upon opening the gift, the group finds a shining and powerful spear inside the box. The girl with orange hair and the apprentice look in awe at the gift they received. Nori says it is an incredible item, but his master comments that it is not bad, though there is a catch. Then he touches the weapon and says it has no use for her except as a powerful refrigerator. The hero suggests sending food instead of a useless item, and the gentleman agrees. Suddenly, the protagonist becomes serious and looks to the side with a different expression. He warns that something is coming to the island, leaving the older man confused. Soon after, a boat appears on the horizon, quickly approaching their island. On the boat, a man in sunglasses is impressed that someone has an island as a home. He adds that the owner must be a Class S awakened and that he risked his life to find him. The man and his 2 bodyguards arrive on the island while the butler apologizes for their sudden visit. The gentleman explains that the visitors are from the Heirs Guild and their leader requested to see him. He says he denied the visit because the master was on vacation, but now he will remove them from the island. The man with black hair then says it will not be necessary to expel them, and the gentleman is confused. He thinks the visitor is bold for coming unarmed against someone much stronger than him. With a smile on his face, the master says he is intrigued by the situation, and the young woman observes him. The master then decides to prepare to welcome his unexpected new guests. The guild visitors are shocked and wonder if this is the castle of a demon. Their leader feels that the hero is not a normal Class S and becomes very afraid. With a dark aura, he asks if the man is the representative who came to seek him. Smiling sinisterly, he invites the man to state the purpose of his visit. Then they sit in a living room to start the conversation with the visitors. At that moment, the white-haired gentleman serves a cold chocolate drink to his master. The man drinks while thinking that a Class S with a demonic aura likes cold chocolate. Taegyam tells him to just say what he wants because he hates wasting time on nonsense. Then the guild leader chokes on his drink and becomes even more frightened by the pressure. With that, the man stands up and bows to the ground, begging him to accept the invitation. But without a second thought, the master completely refuses the visitor's request. The scene then shifts to the Awakened Association, where the story continues now. A man researches on his tablet and wonders where this Heirs Guild that appeared is located. His assistant explains that it is a Class C guild, and the official scoffs at the information. The assistant says that his boss should indeed pay close attention to this new guild. He explains that it is important because a specific person is involved with the guild. The official is shocked and wonders if that crazy Class S is really involved. With a serious look, he asks his assistant to provide more details about the situation. The young man explains that the leader of the Heirs Guild has been pursuing the Awakened for some time. His boss says they are keeping an eye on the hero but cannot see everything he does. Then the assistant informs him that there are reports that the guild went to the west coast, and the boss is shocked, confirming that they went to an island and that a meeting was scheduled between the two. The official becomes stressed and wonders why they would go after that dangerous crazy person. With that, he orders his subordinate to find out what was said in the meeting between them. The boss thinks he is monitoring the hero and does not understand why a Class C got involved in this. He reflects that if contact is made, the situation will change drastically for everyone there. Worried, he concludes that they have no choice but to do something. Then the official picks up the phone and makes a call to a man named Mr. Chen. With a serious look, he warns the man on the line that he has some business to resolve. The official talks about the offer he previously declined and that he will reconsider if the man accepts the job. On the other end of the line, the man is interested in the proposal and asks to hear more details. Back on the island, a man with glasses is still kneeling on the ground begging Tae-young. The visitor desperately asks why he refuses to join his guild. With a cold look, the protagonist replies that the answer is simple: he is useless to him. The hero adds that his worth is the same as a stone he crushes on the ground. Then he says that even so, the visitor had the audacity to risk his life in his territory. With that, the master tells him to leave because he hates wasting time on worthless things. But the guild leader refuses and says he cannot go home empty-handed. He recalls that he felt from the beginning that he needed that awakened one on his team. He knew that if he couldn't get him, his guild would have no future, so he shouts at the young man that it isn't true. Then he argues that even if they are useless to the master, they also fought to the death. He suggests that they could be useful as support or control while the young blonde observes. He even offers to work as cleaners for the place. The guild leader begs for a chance, saying he will do anything he asks. With a smile on his face, the protagonist asks if the man really said anything. Interested, the master turns and says that the visitor's proposal is quite interesting. The master finally agrees to give the guild leader a chance, and the man is shocked. He asks if the man is sure he will do anything, and the visitor confirms immediately. With a smile, the hero says that's good and tells him to prove his worth and skill to him. At that, the master orders them to start by destroying the Awakened Association, and they are taken aback. Moments later, the visitors are already on their boat sailing away from that island. On the boat, the leader thinks the demand was excessive, but without the hero, there is no future at all. He says they will be defeated anyway, and that they need to take down the 3 great guilds. With that, he orders his men to investigate, and if they succeed, they will become rich. Back on the island, the apprentice asks her master why he gave such a crazy order. The hero replies that it was for no reason, and that, to be honest, it is quite an impossible task. The girl explains that the association is made up of 100 sub-guilds and 3 leading guilds. Then she says that the 3 largest are Red Dragon, Valkyrie, and Brave Crimson, while Yujin listens in silence. The master says he knows and does not expect them to complete the task, and the young woman is confused. He explains that if they manage to accomplish an impossible task, then they will be very useful. With a wicked smile, he says that this is not his purpose and that their usefulness is another. The apprentice is shocked to learn that they will create a reason to attack the association. With a look of hatred, the master wonders if she thinks he has forgotten his past. He vows to erase from existence each one who helped take the life of his beloved grandmother. With that, he says they will be the spark for his revenge, and the young woman is terrified. The other companion thinks they deserve what is coming and that they will not have a quick end. The scene then shifts to a commercial building in the middle of a busy street in the city. Inside a room, the leader of the Heirs Guild is confronted by a mysterious woman. The leader of Valkyrie says she heard he has been researching the 3 great guilds. The man becomes nervous, and in his thoughts, he argues with his men for being idiots. She warns him not to even think about denying it, as they have already discovered evidence of his schemes. The woman comments that she found it interesting that he started acting behind the backs of the stronger ones. She adds that all of this began right after the visit to the S-Class Awakened One on the island. The man with glasses goes into total panic, thinking that now they are really screwed. The girl asks him to calm down and says she will not do anything against his group there. Then she explains that her guild is a guardian of Korea and does not act like the Red Dragon. The woman just wants to know what kind of deal the man made with the S-Class Awakened One for this. She thinks of the worst possible scenario, which involves the mysterious man from the mysterious island. The worst is if that powerful Awakened One ends up being the target of all of Korea because of this. The leader of Heirs becomes very nervous and starts trying to explain the situation to the woman. The scene returns to their meeting at a table while another person observes them from afar. Meanwhile, on the island, Nori is training hard at the gym. Alongside her, Yujin was also training, and she wonders how the blonde ended up with the protagonist. Suddenly, her phone starts ringing and she thinks that the intelligence service left her there and forgot about her. So she answers the phone and complains about being abandoned, but the person on the other end says it's worse. Upon hearing the news, the woman is completely shocked and doesn't understand anything she heard. Running, she goes to her master and informs him that she just received a call from the Secret Service. The hero looks at the phone and asks what is happening, and the young woman tries to explain. Back on the street, the guild leader Heirs and his men exit the building looking unfriendly. At that moment, someone stops behind them and asks if he is the leader of the guild Heirs. The man and his henchmen look confused at the person and ask who they are after all. Back at the cafe, the leader of the Valkyrie is having a drink while observing the street. Suddenly, a loud noise catches her attention and the woman is completely in shock. Soon after, a massive explosion occurs, completely destroying the entire place. Elsewhere, the leader of the Red Dragon gets irritated by someone joining the enemy. The man wonders if the traitor thought he would escape and remembers that he crushed him completely. At that moment, the hero sees on his phone the news of the terrorist attack that happened in Seoul. With a smile, he says that the man proved his worth and that he will now accept the guild Ares. In the sky, a private plane flies at high speed toward its final destination. Upon arriving at his destination, the master descends from the plane while someone asks what they just heard. In an office, a man is shocked to learn that the hero plans to attack the association. Celine informs that the leader of Ares was attacked in the middle of Seoul. Fortunately, the leader of the Valkyrie intervened, but the chief of Ares was injured, and his men were not. Sumgo comments that they still haven't discovered the reason behind the attack on the guild. At this point, it is revealed that the guild Ares is now under the total control of the island master. The man in the office panics and asks how and since when this happened. His colleague says it's normal to be shocked since they also just found out recently. The young woman explains that the hero thinks the association attacked his new subordinate and retaliated. The older man counters that they still don't know who the real culprit is. At that moment, he realizes the truth behind everything and falls into complete despair. The young woman confirms that the master orchestrated the attack to have the guild heirs under his control. He is using the attack as an excuse to take revenge on those who harmed his grandmother. Inside the car, the driver asks the master if they are going to the intelligence service. The hero denies and says that, in fact, they will go to the Valkyrie Guild instead. The driver confirms the destination while Norris and Eugen seem worried about what will happen. With that, the blonde companion draws her master's attention, a bit concerned. He says he knows what she means and that not everyone in the association is bad. He also states that he will not let the loss of his grandmother go unavenged. But then he agrees that she is right and that there is no need to wipe everyone out. Then he reveals that he plans to use the association for his own ends after dominating it. The master says he will go to the Valkyrie Guild first because they might be useful in the future. He says he wants to confirm if it's worth sparing them before attacking the association. Then he adds that it would be great if the good ones were also useful for his plans. Shortly after, the car arrives in front of a huge commercial building in the city. Inside the place, a man warns that an S-class is there to attack their guild. However, the leader of the Valkyrie appears and asks everyone to remain calm for now. She explains that if the visitor wanted to destroy the place, he would have done so already. The woman orders the evacuation of the staff and says she will do everything to avoid a confrontation. In the guild's hallway, the two groups finally meet to discuss what happened. The hero then directly asks if the woman there is the leader of the Valkyrie Guild. The young woman confirms that her name is Park Sion and that she is the master of that awakened guild. In his thoughts, the protagonist notes that she is much stronger than the rumors suggested. He realizes that the young woman has a rare ability and could be useful while she defends herself. The leader says she confronted the man but never intended to attack him or the master. But then the protagonist interrupts her, mentioning the Ilsum Guild. The woman is completely shocked and speechless upon hearing the name of that guild there. The master then asks if she's going to say that she didn't know about their involvement in this. Frightened, the girl thinks that the Ilsum massacre wasn't enough for his revenge. She realizes that he wants revenge against the entire association because he believes everyone is guilty. The hero then demands that the woman explain in detail everything she knows about the case. The leader says that her guild was dissolved to hold Ilsum accountable for its actions. However, the president of the association hid everything after receiving a large bribe from Ilsum. The girl tried to protest but had no chance against the powerful Red Dragon Guild. She continues saying that if the truth were revealed, the association would collapse completely. The Valkyrie leader says that even though it isn't right, they need to protect the country. The master approaches her and questions her silence, which he interprets as approval. With a dark aura, he asks if she thinks she is innocent for not getting involved. The woman panics, thinking that no matter what she says, he will eliminate everyone. Seeing this, the guild members shout to stop him and create a protective barrier. But the hero breaks the barrier and grabs the leader's neck, leaving her breathless instantly. One of the Valkyrie men becomes furious and rushes to attack the visitor to save her. However, the blonde companion steps in front and manages to defend against the attack with her weapon. She then delivers a powerful kick that sends him flying away. Then the red-haired companion activates her draconic transformation and goes into action. With her ability, she captures another guild member and threatens to injure her face. The master continues holding the leader and says he admires her attitude for the greater good. He adds that for him, this is a personal matter and concerns his family's revenge. Then he questions her if she will still cling to the greater good even in the face of her end. Crying, the Valkyrie leader pleads for him to take only her life as punishment. She asks him to spare the other members as she will take full responsibility alone. Meanwhile, the young apprentice immobilizes the man who attacked her with her huge weapon. With a look of hatred, the hero says that what she's asking for is a great absurdity. Changing the scene, we see the headquarters of the powerful Red Dragon Guild. Meanwhile, two men walk out of the building while discussing business. Suddenly, the older one turns around in shock and asks what his subordinate just said. At that moment, the chief's phone starts ringing and vibrating, so he checks what it's about. He answers the call, confused, and asks what is happening on the other end of the line. A mysterious voice responds that things have gotten a bit more complicated for them. The man on the phone explains that their target has worsened the situation and everything has become more difficult. He continues saying that this particular target is a much bigger problem than expected. And to make matters worse, the guy is heading toward the current location of President Qian. Hearing this, the president panics and decides to change the request he made earlier. Then he shouts desperately on the phone for them to come protect him immediately. On the other end of the line, the man says that he must be scared and that only they can stop him. Then the person reveals that he has already sent reinforcements in that direction to help. But he also comments that it is disappointing to see the great president trembling in fear. The man laments not being able to see the scene and says that the fee will not be discounted, leaving Qian furious. Furious, the president throws the phone to the ground and shouts about who that bastard thinks he is. He turns to his assistant and orders him to gather everyone and prepare for battle. The subordinate agrees and says he will relay the message to the others immediately. Qian thinks that no matter the enemy's power, he has the strength of the guild and someone else. He smiles and says he will resolve everything once and for all today, while the protagonist was in the car. Beside him, the Valkyrie leader seems very nervous about the current situation she's gotten into. In a flashback, we see the master releasing the woman who finally manages to breathe a sigh of relief. He says he spared her life and that of her subordinates because the guild can still be useful. The visitor orders her to follow him because they are going to attack the Red Dragon Guild now. Back in the car, the girl questions him and asks why he is taking her with him. The young man explains that she will have to testify about the corruption and crimes of the president. He comments that her testimony will justify his future actions while his subordinate observes him. With a serious look, the hero says he will punish the criminals but will gather those who follow him. He then reveals that he spared her so she could see his will being carried out up close. The leader of the Valkyries finally understands the plan and agrees to follow his orders. In the car, the driver informs the master that it seems they need to stop there. In front of them, a huge army of men in suits completely blocks the street. With that, the group gets out of the car and faces the crowd of guild members gathered. The hero then turns to his companions and asks them not to get involved. He releases a dark aura and says that this revenge belongs only to him now. One of the guild members spots him and orders everyone to attack the bastard at once. Then the protagonist unleashes his power and easily destroys the first wave of enemies. Far away, the president listens through his computer to the transmission of the men screaming for help. The man beside him seems calm and questions if this is the awakened Class S. He comments that the visitor is not as impressive as he thought he would be. The person says that the president is lucky because the hero is holding back a lot right now. The head of the Red Dragon pleads with the man to stop that monster once and for all. With a smile, the person says he will take care of it and will demand a nice extra reward. Back in the battle, one more of the men is taken down. With smoke coming from his hands, the protagonist observes the result. Amidst the destruction, the hero wonders if the small fish have already been dealt with. The leader of the Valkyries is shocked to see that a single man defeated the entire Red Dragon Guild. Then, thinking that it was the right choice to cooperate with Taehyung, the blonde apprentice smiles and comments that the master was merciful since no one died this time. With a thoughtful expression, the young warrior looks at the new enemy approaching. He then asks the two apprentices to stay back. Suddenly, a huge explosion of fire occurs in front of the entire group present. The girls are confused while Saehyun creates a protective barrier to shield them. The protagonist remains standing and completely unscathed amidst all that fire. Soon, the blonde visitor is surprised that the master is still standing after receiving his attack. The hero recognizes the strength of the opponent, who says that was just a hello for the hero of the world. With a mocking smile, the newcomer reveals that he is also a Class S like him. He introduces himself as Dylan Lane from the Another Guild, leaving the girls frightened. The man with orange hair stares at the master and says that his time of death has finally come. Shocked, the oldest of the girls repeats the name of the mysterious criminal organization. Beside her, the blonde apprentice is paralyzed and can barely finish the sentence she was going to say. The two have blank expressions and wonder what this another is all about. But the leader of the Valkyries seems to understand the gravity of the situation they are in. She remembers that most awakened individuals use their powers to protect everyone. However, there is a criminal group that uses their powers for evil called Another. In a flashback, the woman remembers asking Director Chun about this group. The man denied everything at the time, but she continued to suspect the old man. Back in the present, the man with orange hair smiles confidently at the master. The leader of the Valkyries then realizes that Director Chun was working with them. The old man shouts that the hero is not the only Class S and that now the young man will pay. Meanwhile, the adversary is surprised by the lack of reaction from our protagonist. Dylan gets irritated and complains that the master did not react dramatically to his arrival. With a bored look, a hero replies that he already knows who the blonde adversary is. He then analyzes the enemy's stats and realizes that he has nothing special. Then the protagonist steps forward and says he will correct something the other said. He releases a dark aura and says that the man will not be his death because many have already tried. At that, the man with orange hair turns to the director and sends him to a nearby shelter. But the old man shouts that he does not take orders from a mercenary and wants to see the fight up close. Dylan becomes furious and yells at the director to get out of there if he doesn't want to become barbecue. With that, the president of the Red Dragon grumbles, displeased with the order received. He mutters curses under his breath and steps away from the battlefield to avoid getting hurt in the fight. The opponent turns to the hero and says that he has the right to be arrogant, but now he will see. Realizing the danger, the master warns the girls to stay away from the main battle. The enemy prepares a powerful attack and asks if the young man will still boast afterward. Then the man with orange hair jumps and launches a devastating attack called Inferno. The energy takes the form of a huge demonic skull that advances toward the hero. The protagonist is surprised by the speed of the opponent's sixth circle spell. He then wonders if the speed of the strike is due to the enemy's unique ability. Far from there, the blonde apprentice shouts for the master and complains that the place is too hot. The pink energy of the attack begins to melt the ground as it advances at high speed. Saehyun worries about the heat and wonders if the young man can really endure it. Despite this, the warrior faces the flames and seems quite confident that he will win. The blonde visitor says with a serious look that the protagonist will not fall so easily. Then he prepares another powerful attack and states that he will not underestimate a Class S. The man with orange hair concentrates his energy and says he will ensure the opponent's end. A massive amount of pink energy suddenly envelops the hero's body completely. The dark pink power collides, creating a large hurricane around Taehyung. Dylan feels the impact and seems to be struggling to control this power. Next, a huge explosion occurs at the location where the two men were fighting. From a distance, Director Chun and his men feel the ground shake with the force of the explosion. Dylan apologizes to Director Chun, for what is about to happen there. He then tells the old man to think of it as a free renovation of the guild's headquarters. The man with orange hair then releases a magic circle and prepares his strongest attack. Next, a pink explosion destroys everything around with impressive force. The guild's headquarters is completely engulfed in flames as Dylan watches everything. Laughing, the opponent boasts that no one can stop his fire magic. Director Chum becomes furious with the destruction but soon thinks that the sacrifice was worth it. He believes that if the attack defeats the hero, then the building doesn't matter much. Yujin declares worriedly that those flames melt concrete, so even for the master, that attack was too strong. She says she has never seen flames of that magnitude, so the master will not come out unscathed this time. Then the blonde apprentice takes the lead and orders everyone to evacuate the survivors. She explains that the next fight will be worse and that only they can contain the damage. The girl tells them not to worry because the master would not fall to that attack. Meanwhile, the explosion continues to destroy the building amidst the pink flames. Suddenly, a vortex of dark energy appears and begins to consume all the fire. The opponent is shocked by the scene and wonders what the hell is happening. The voice says that the flames are impressive for the level of this world, but nonetheless. He adds that for him, that power is nothing more than something basic. With a smile, the young man says that his opponents are still beneath him. The blonde adversary grumbles, irritated by the protagonist's confidence. Taehyung then summons a spear made of his dark magic. In an instant, the young warrior delivers a powerful blow to the opponent. From a distance, the president of the Red Dragon watches everything with a look of panic. The red energy of the protagonist completely engulfs the opponent in an instant. The great red explosion lights up the entire city in the distance, creating a glare. Meanwhile, a man and a red-haired girl arrive and observe the destruction. He laments, saying that they apparently arrived too late for the fight. Celine then comments that there is nothing they can do if they go to the scene now. But her partner says that Taehyung won't take long and that they should just clean up afterward. Back in the battle, the blonde opponent has survived and faces the hero amidst the fire. With a furious look, the opponent seems ready to continue the battle at any cost. Crossing through the flames, the protagonist says that the enemy's sweet revenge ends now. The master then asks with a smile if he should relieve the tension with a bit of fun. Dylan gets irritated and shouts that the bastard dares to underestimate him and his physical strength. However, Taehyung continues walking calmly through the fire without being shaken. He then raises his hand, thus defending himself from one of Dylan's fiery attacks. The blonde then shouts that this ability is not something only the protagonist possesses, then unleashing a burst of red and golden flames towards the dark-haired man. Taehyung stands still as the blast hits him, creating an explosion. The blonde opponent asks with a smile how the hero is handling that blow, but then he is surprised by what he sees in front of him. Taehyung had held back the opponent's attack while saying it's impressive how quickly he adapts. With a confident smile, he asks if that is all the orange-haired man has. Dylan is shocked that the young man withstood the attacks without a scratch. He then asks how the protagonist as a mere physical type could endure his magic while the young man approached. The hero corrects him, saying he is not a physical type but a true mage. He then states that the opponent's magic is nothing but basic, and that thinking he is superior is ridiculous. Shocked, the orange-haired man incredulously repeats that his magic is merely elemental. The master then thinks to himself that this is the decisive difference between them and the demons. He reflects that the strength of demons comes from their fighting instinct and not from skills. However, the humans of this world easily lose their will in the face of a strong enemy. It seems that the blonde opponent has finally reached his total power limit at that moment. But Dylan apologizes and says he underestimated the protagonist, thinking he was physical. Laughing, he says he has finally found a worthy opponent to use all his strength. With a smile, the hero praises the spirit of his adversary and asks for more fun in the fight. At that, the blonde opponent wastes no time and creates a powerful wall of fire with his hands. As the wall of flames forms, the protagonist feels his arms start to burn. He notices that indeed the enemy's power is much stronger than last time. Then the orange-haired man shouts for the fire to compress against its target. With that, the master seems to feel a bit of the pressure and ponders for a moment. The opponent shouts that it is still not enough and conjures an attack called Volcano. Next, a huge mouth of lava and fire begins to emerge from the ground rapidly. Several lava serpents head towards the hero, who is taken by surprise. Without giving a break, the enemy prepares another powerful ability called Flame Wedge. The new attack spins at high speed and advances towards the surrounded young man. He watches as the attack approaches and hits him. With that, a gigantic explosion of flames and pink energy consumes everything in the area. From a distance, the girls who were helping survivors watch the explosion with worried expressions. Dylan thinks that not even an 8th rank enemy would survive and that the blow has fatally injured him. However, the demon lord is seen easily holding one of the lava serpents. At that, the orange-haired man is completely shocked. He broke the lava serpents with a single blow and extinguished the surrounding fire with a stomp. Enveloped in his dark aura, the master stares at his opponent with a cold and calm gaze. Desperate, Dylan screams and wonders why the warrior simply cannot be defeated. He continues to yell in frustration, questioning why the protagonist does not die while launching another fire attack. Unfazed, the young man simply stares at the enemy as the attack approaches. Then the hero raises his arm and prepares to finally end that battle. With a swift motion, he delivers a red energy strike towards the target. The attack hits the opponent, causing him to lose his arms and creating a wound on his chest. Dylan is left confused about what happened when Taeyang steps on his chest. He forces the young blonde down hard onto the ground while standing over him victoriously. The blonde opponent coughs violently on the ground and appears quite injured from the blow. With a cold look, the hero stares at the enemy without showing a hint of remorse. He continues to step on the young man's chest, demonstrating all his superiority in the fight. At that, the orange-haired man begins to sob in fear and despair on the ground. With a smile, the master asks if perhaps the opponent has lost both his arms. Then he tells the young man to use magic to create new limbs and continue to entertain him. Desperate, the enemy tries to say something that piques the warrior's curiosity. The protagonist then realizes that the opponent has finally reached his total limit. He says the fight was fun, and as a reward, he will finish him off with magic. The blonde man pleads for his life and offers money or to become his loyal subordinate. He even offers information about his organization while the girls watch from afar. But the hero says that unfortunately, he cannot use magic in this world to his misfortune. Then he quotes a saying about advanced power being indistinguishable from magic. Then he delivers the final blow to the enemy, causing them to explode while the Valkyrie leader averts her gaze from the action. The warrior then stands still with bloodied arms after the final act. The dark energy slowly dissipates, revealing the crater left by the final attack. With the battle finally over, the two observers approach the site in shock. The man comments that not even a level 5 enemy would cause such destruction. His partner agrees but says it was lucky the damage wasn't even greater. Celine says she feels relieved with the end of the fight while nearby a healer tends to the wounded. At that moment, Nori appears and catches the attention of the arriving duo. She apologizes on behalf of her master and says they will not flee from responsibility. But the duo says it's alright and that they would accept it even if all of Seoul were destroyed. And the man asks who the hero faced to cause all that chaos there. The blonde girl reveals that he fought against an S-rank awakened, leaving everyone stunned. He says that's impossible since there are only 10 awakened of that level in the world. His partner adds that all S-ranks are under the control of their countries. The Valkyrie girl then reveals that the enemy came from a mysterious place called Another. She says the main problem is not the association and that they need to act quickly. Then she adds that this has become a security issue for South Korea. The scene then shifts to an imposing building where an important meeting will take place. Inside, the agency director is shocked to hear the name of the organization Another. Sion says she believes the older man already knows about the mysterious group. She says the situation has worsened and that hiding the truth will not solve anything anymore. The director reveals that only high-ranking officials knew of the existence of this secret group. It is shown that Another has already been seen in Japan, China, and several other places. He explains that it is a terrorist organization, which is why they decided to keep everything confidential. The protagonist thinks this decision is foolish, comparing it to a bird hiding its head in the sand thinking it is concealed. But the girl says that due to the incident, they can no longer hide the truth from the public. She says soon everyone in South Korea will know about the threat and the clash between Taehyung and the other S-rank awakened. With the association disbanded, she proposes the creation of a new center for the awakened. The plan is to blame the former president and say that the hero was sent to prevent the worst. Thus, the security agency and the young man will become the new focal point for everyone. Meanwhile, a holographic meeting is taking place with leaders from various parts of the world. A woman with red hair then coldly announces that Dylan is dead. One of the leaders mocks, saying that the crazy guy finally died and that he won a bet. With a serious expression, the red-haired woman repeats the name of the deceased. Everyone in the room is shocked by the confirmation of their companion's death. One of those present realizes that the news is true and becomes quite pensive. They discover that the fight occurred in South Korea during a mission against the new S-rank. The same man reflects that the companion was one of the strongest and that this situation is serious. The leader then orders them to contact someone named Che Jinping to learn more. Then a man named Gandharva is ordered to go to Korea and seems to like the idea. He confirms his departure while elsewhere a portal begins to open, saying that he is eager to meet the person who managed to defeat his partner. Back in Seoul, the group watches the sky as a portal slowly opens in the air. Meanwhile, the protagonist's new team walks through the city with serious expressions. Alone on a bench, the young man wonders what his new colleagues are thinking. The leader of the Valkyries says that a little tension is necessary to keep everyone focused. However, they didn't need to be so rigid at that moment, but the transformed woman disagrees. The blonde girl then says that her companion could handle many enemies alone. Then she changes the subject and turns to the master to decide on the team's name. Yujin suggests the name Invincible, since their leader is the strongest of all. Nori then thinks for a moment and suggests the name White Dragon Team. The other gets irritated, asking if they are some kind of mixed dish by combining two existing team names. Then Cyan joins the conversation and suggests the name Untouchables. She explains that the name means something that simply no one can touch. With that, the girls find the idea cool and quickly agree on the new name. The team is then officially named Untouchables, leaving the leader satisfied. At this, the group leader agrees with a simple nod at the new name. But suddenly, the entire team looks up at the sky with expressions of shock and surprise. The portal suddenly begins to grow, startling everyone present. The blonde girl recognizes the situation and says it is just like the department store incident. Park Sion and the dragon woman tense up, watching the new threat emerge. However, the protagonist faces the portal with confidence and a determined look. Nori then looks at the master and reassures himself, saying that with him there's nothing to fear. A desperate Awakened shouts for everyone to retreat, as this is not something they can face. Within the dark vortex, a pair of red eyes glows with a sinister energy. While the other Awakened flee, Taekyung remains in place. With that, a gigantic monstrous claw tears through the portal and enters their world. Next, a colossal draconic creature emerges, and the protagonist wonders if it is a prank. A status screen reveals that the beast is a war dragon with immense power. It is said that he lost consciousness after violating the terms of a mysterious contract. The Valkyrie leader looks at her watch and is shocked to see that it is a level 7 threat. Yujin recognizes the codename of the creature that is face to face with the protagonist. Sion realizes that the appearance and energy of the beast are identical to the first dragon the young man had defeated. Nori then suggests that the codename for this beast be Red Dragon 2, leaving the two women shocked. Then the blonde says that her master will hunt it down without even a scratch, just like before. As she praises the young man's fight, the Red Dragon 2 steps on him. His companions are shocked and scream desperately for their master. The dragon then hears someone comment that they are surprised something dead has appeared. It was the young man who was unharmed and who also says that this dragon did not seem to be undead. The hero wonders if the creature returned due to some resurrection spell. He then decides to leave the questions for later and snaps his fingers to fight. With a firm step, the warrior advances and says he will deal with the monster first. The young man jumps into the air for his attack while the beast roars. Landing a punch on the dragon's head, he shouts that he will cut off the creature's head again. The creature glares at him with fury, but the protagonist orders it to lower its gaze. Then he delivers a powerful kick above the enemy's head. The young man then lands on the ground and faces the immense monster defiantly. The colossal creature attacks with its tail, and the young man prepares for the impending impact. But in an impressive feat, he grabs the monster's tail with both hands. A red energy then begins to emanate from his arms as he holds on tight. With absurd strength, the hero lifts the dragon into the air and violently throws it. The monster is completely stunned for a moment by the blow. The protagonist then coldly orders the lizard to get up to continue the fight. He pulls his sword from within the portal as he prepares to continue the battle. He jumps over the beast's head and readies his dark blade for the final strike. Far away, a green lightning bolt cuts through the sky of a volcanic location, and someone thinks this is madness. A mysterious group observes the landscape while one of them talks about a level 7 enemy. The man with the white beard is worried because this threat should not have emerged for another 3 years. Then the hooded man tells them to stop the conversation, and another says that the barrier has weakened there. The group leader turns to a girl named Erin and asks if she can do it. The girl stares at the lava below, seeming to ponder her companion's question. With a confident look, the young woman replies that it will be difficult, but she believes she can do it. But the hooded man stares at her and says he needs a firm answer, not a vague one. At this, the redhead corrects herself and asserts with determination that she will do it without any failure. After her response, one of the members says that from now on, it will follow his command. With that, the leader orders everyone to take their positions to initiate the plan. He then turns to Erin and tells her to start as the girl prepares her hands. The young woman joins her hands and begins to concentrate a large sphere of blue energy. At this moment, the hooded man raises his hand and helps the girl launch the spell forward. In this moment, the other members of the group also channel their energies to assist. The group leader smiles sinisterly and whispers the word annihilation to everyone. Then he raises his hand to the sky and concentrates his dark energy on the spell. With this, everyone's energy unites and creates a dark vortex that spins rapidly. Young Erin looks up with a shocked expression, unable to believe what she is seeing. With red eyes, the hooded man smiles and says that this is the beginning of the apocalypse. At that moment, the dark portal spins more violently, ready to be unleashed upon the world. Back in the city, everything seems calm with the sun shining in the blue, serene sky. But suddenly chaos erupts and people run desperately, shouting for help. A group of hunters notices the threat and estimates it to be a level 9 enemy. Suddenly, an explosion occurs, throwing the group into the air. The boy in the gray hoodie lands safely but is frightened and wonders what the hell is happening. At that moment, twisted dark tentacles begin to emerge all over the city. He looks back upon seeing something approaching, but is already too late. A trail of blood is left in the wake of the attack. Meanwhile, at an airport, it is said that all the Awakened from around the world will gather. Inside a plane, the protagonist looks out the window and asks if the rank S Awakened will come. His subordinate says that those from the United States and China will come, with at least 3 in total. Sion approaches and informs her master that they have finally arrived at their destination. With that, he stands up, and she comments that tensions between nations will be inevitable. She wonders if that man will be able to keep calm amidst all the chaos. Nori then questions if this means that Anderson from the United States will also come. Her master gives a sideways smile and thinks that the whole situation will be interesting. The light-haired girl remembers that the enemy is rank 9, so it won't be a problem. He pats the young girl's head and tells her not to worry because everything will be fine. As they exit the plane, a man greets them and asks if they are the Awakened from Korea. Once inside a car, the driver says he will explain the whole situation to the group. The woman with pink hair finds it strange that a rank B is driving to control information. At that, she wonders if the situation is really that bad as the car leaves the airport. The driver explains that the enemy has alternated between destruction and rest for 10 days. He also informs them that there are already 30 rank B awakened and 12 rank at present. The driver continues the explanation and adds that there are 5 rank S awakened there. He confirms that the United States, Russia, and the United Kingdom have sent support with their strongest. The young blonde girl is confused and asks if there wouldn't only be 4 heroes in total. The guide smiles and replies that the great nations have hidden forces kept for themselves. Then they exit the car and the man explains that the rank B will handle logistics. As they walk, he says that the rank A were chosen for their healing and buffs. At that, the group's master adds that the rank S will naturally lead the attack. Inside a room, someone announces to a man that the Korean Awakened have arrived. The man from the beginning was alive and asks if this means 6 rank S, and the other confirms that it does. The subject becomes irritated and says he wanted to keep the rank S secret from China hidden. His companion then questions if they really need so many powerful heroes. With a sinister smile, the hooded man says that maybe it isn't even enough now. The other young man is confused by the response and asks what he means by that. Suddenly, the subject looks shocked and wonders what the hell that is that he sees. A bracelet is shown that can barely contain an injury, even though it can heal everything. The injured person explains that the wound was caused only by the energy that leaked from the monster. While the dark sphere is shown, he reveals that he didn't even fight the creature. In the waiting room, Nori comments to her master in surprise. She is shocked to see that Jane, a rank A awakened from England, is also there. The blonde girl gets excited because they say her summoning rivals even the strongest. Soon after, she points to a famous healer known as a saint for his powers. Suddenly, a boy in a black hoodie catches everyone's attention by being there alone. He starts walking toward the protagonist, asking if he is the rank S awakened from Korea. The girl's master simply smiles to the side, finding that very interesting. A screen appears showing that the new guy's name is Lei Feng and that he has undergone surgeries. Lei Feng turns to the other man and asks mockingly if he knows him. Nori steps in front and questions the other guy about who he is. With a serious look, Lei Feng tells her to get out of the way because he wants to talk to the man beside him. Meanwhile, the other awakened ones comment that this is a new rank S hero from China. Gaolin approaches the two boys and asks what the problem is with the rookie named Lei Feng. The Chinese man simply clicks his tongue and steps away. The man in the hoodie then turns to the Korean hero and asks if he is the rank S from that country. Go thinks to himself that the young man is a coward, but soon after says goodbye, stating he has more to do. He then comments that the Koreans won't be much help and that they need stronger nations. This irritates the blonde girl and she mutters that they are no match for her master. The Korean hero merely looks back with a calm expression, unfazed by the provocation. At that moment, his gaze shifts to another person in the room and he observes them closely. A screen appears showing that the man's name is Benjamin and he is a rank S sorcerer. But the young woman says that he is a famous healer known to everyone as a great saint. The young man looks confused and a note reveals that he is a servant of someone unknown. The protagonist's system shows another man and he questions what his true identity is. At this point, Benjamin approaches and asks if the Korean hero has any business with him. The girl gets all excited and says that this is the saint from Manchester she mentioned. With that, her master stares at him and asks if he really is a healer of the saint type. The young man smiles and confirms that he is a healer specialized in curing status effects. The protagonist then gives a smirk and says he thought he was a wizard. Suddenly, Benjamin's smile disappears and he looks shocked by the hero's statement. Benjamin laughs and says that healing magic doesn't exist, trying to hide his surprise. At this, the protagonist's companion explains that only healers of the healing type can heal. With a smirk, the Korean hero repeats that healing magic is not something real. The young man lets out a nervous laugh and quickly says goodbye, leaving the place in a hurry. With that, the master tells his subordinate not to pay attention to that guy. Soon after, all the heroes gather because it seems that the battle is about to begin. The awakened ones come together, maintaining a serious expression. The protagonist simply crosses his arms and gives a confident smile to everyone. At this moment, Gaolin prepares for the fight and tells everyone he'll all out now. From the end of the street, the heroes observe the city completely destroyed by the enemy. The blonde girl looks around and comments that she can't see Anderson anywhere. The other girl assumes that the plan is to use the weaker S ranks to tire out the monster. She continues by saying that Lei Feng and Gaolin will provide support for Anderson's final attack. The protagonist's assistant thinks that China believes the fight will be easy for them. The master then turns to his companion and asks why she thinks this is dangerous. She explains that China has given up the spoils of battle, which shows their desperation. The protagonist simply says that he understands the gravity of the situation and what is at stake. With that, he turns to his companions and orders everyone to retreat from that location. The blonde girl smiles and says that since they are rank B, they would already stay in the rear anyway. But their master corrects her, and orders them to leave the battlefield completely now. With shining eyes, he agrees that the upcoming fight will be very dangerous. He felt the energy from Korea but didn't imagine it would be so strong and frightening. Suddenly, the other hunters get scared and scream, not understanding what is happening. Gao asks if it's starting while Taeyang opens his arsenal portal. He summons a demonic sword that consumes the vitality of whoever wields it. The Korean hero then warns the blade that he is its master and it must obey. At that moment, a giant and terrifying eye appears in the sky, watching the destroyed city. The wind caused by the creature pushed the other awakened ones back while our hero stood firm. He then positions himself with his crimson sword, ready to face the threat. The protagonist then shouts for the rank B awakened ones to retreat immediately from the location. One of the men comments that the enemy is too strong and asks the blonde if he can handle it. The subject responds with a worried expression and says he is not sure if he can win. At that, his companion explains that the opponents are ranked according to their levels. He points to the giant eye and says that one seems to belong to royalty and is impossible to defeat. The blonde pretends not to hear and says that despite everything, he still believes they can win. But his friend questions him and asks if the power difference between them isn't too great. The hero replies that is why they are there but admits it would be very difficult alone. Another hunter comments that even with other rank S, the fight will be tough and asks what the plan is. At that moment, the protagonist moves forward alone and someone calls him crazy for going ahead. Even though it is dangerous, the Korean hero charges at the monster with his sword shining. Seeing that, the blonde gets inspired, raises his sword, and shouts for everyone to advance together. With that, the other hunters get excited because Anderson, the strongest in the world, is with them. Anderson gives a smirk and remembers the man who defeated him as if he were a child. A screen appears showing that the eye will reveal its true strength for the final battle. The protagonist admits that the monster has more strength and resilience than he does. He says that the creature was a god in flesh and blood, completely adorned with divinity. A screen warns him that the divine power of the decadent fragment is dangerous upon contact. With his arm wrapped in red energy, the protagonist prepares to attack the monster. Without hesitation, he leaps into the air and delivers a powerful blow with his crimson blade. He floats in front of the giant eye while everyone watches. The long-haired boy makes a face and finds the whole situation disgusting. Suddenly, black thorns emerge from the spot where the protagonist's blow landed. A screen reveals the chain of destruction, and the thorns begin to turn into small monsters. The man in the suit lands on the ground and prepares to face the new dark creatures. Then he jumps again and challenges the monsters, saying he will see who will win the fight. In the meantime, the blonde hero is completely surrounded by the newly summoned creatures. With his shining sword, he attacks, but the remnants of the monsters become rank enemies. Realizing the danger, the blonde shouts for all rank S awakens to advance now. With that, the other hunters prepare for battle and shout to hold the line. The protagonist floats in the air while dodging the dark attacks coming his way. He uses his purple aura to retaliate against the enemies that emerge from the giant eye. A hunter complains that the Korean hero messed up the plan and now they are fighting the minions. Anderson defeats the monsters and comments that he is stronger than all of them combined. The blonde asks irritably if there is anyone there who can face the creature like the Korean can. From a distance, the hero's companions watch the fight and say they can't do anything. The blonde girl then says that even so, they need to at least protect the rank B awakenings. The girl asks the other to call for reinforcements and the blonde prepares to take action. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, one of the heroes ends up being surrounded by the creatures. He is grabbed by several monsters at once and cannot break free from them. The creatures then advance towards Gaolin, ready to attack. The hunter is shocked to see the Korean fighting with such ease. He then shouts to Anderson, saying that the awakened from that country is being overwhelmed. But the blonde realizes that even though he is strong, the Korean boy is starting to feel the pressure. Anderson becomes worried and wonders what will happen if the protagonist is defeated. A black and red tentacle attacks the protagonist quickly. He looks at his hand and is shocked to realize that his skin and muscles are decomposing. Meanwhile, the giant eye simply stares at him with a flame aura surrounding it. Angrily, the demon lord reveals his crimson wings, calling the monster a bastard. The creature then uses the gaze of madness, but the hero stares back at it without fear. With his eyes shining, he asks if the monster wants to drive him insane and activates his berserk mode. At that, the boy charges forward and shouts that he is already crazy as his attack hits the eye. The blow from the winged hero hits the eye squarely, but a magical barrier is revealed. He then begins to strike the barrier, trying to penetrate it. Seeing that nothing was working and the barrier remained intact, he dropped his sword. Deciding to try to break the barrier with his bare hands, he starts punching it. He throws punch after punch against the barrier, but nothing seemed to work. With a determined look, the young man continues attacking the barrier, determined to break through it. It was then that cracks began to form, indicating that the barrier was giving way. The protagonist's attacks create a gust of wind around him. Seeing that scene, one of the hunters is shocked and wonders if the Korean hero has gone mad. In that moment, Anderson notices that the monsters have stopped multiplying with the attacks on the giant eye. One man asks if they should help, and another says they can only fight the weaker ones. The girl attacks one of the beasts while questioning if they won't multiply again. Another hunter says that if that happens, it will be very difficult for people to retreat from there. With that, the brown-haired young man decides to join the protagonist at the front line. The blonde takes command and tells everyone to adapt their movements according to the situation. Following orders, the hunters advance through the destroyed city to the front line of the battle. Even with all the attacks, the protagonist realizes that the monster has not yet been defeated. He observes the creature's barrier and notes that despite the damage, the enemy still resists. Anderson then prepares himself and with a shout, unleashes his powerful ability, Wind Cutter. The blonde raises his sword and launches a devastating energy blast against the barrier. But to his surprise, the attack is easily blocked and he is shocked by what happened. In that moment, the Korean young man turns to Anderson and tells him that what he did was completely useless. Unfazed, another hunter charges in and starts punching the giant monster's shell. Another hunter uses all of his strength and throws a rock, trying to break the creature's defense. One of the hunters summons purple energy spikes that begin to rise from the ground. He uses the purple spears to cut the attacks from the giant eye. At that moment, red tentacles emerge and begin to pursue the hunter. From a distance, a hunter gets irritated and asks what the front line is doing upon hearing a scream. Meanwhile, one of the heroes falls to his knees on the ground, holding his injured arm. He looks at his own limb and is shocked to realize that his skin is slowly disintegrating. His companion approaches and tells him to stop crying because they need to remove the limb. One of the hunters then shouts for everyone to immediately dodge a surprise attack. The young man looks back and barely manages to evade. A red hand attacks the injured hero while the other jumps out of danger. The red hand disappears, leaving behind its victim, Mulligan, who begins to disintegrate. The other young man looks at the scene in shock, not knowing what to do. He then looks at the giant eye and realizes that they cannot defeat the creature. Anderson approaches the protagonist and asks if there really is no way to win. The Korean hero explains that it would take a century to destroy the barrier and humanity would perish. In that moment, the blonde questions if he is saying that there is no way to stop the eye monster. The young man in the suit honestly admits that there is no way to stop that. But Anderson says he will do what he can, and the winged hero agrees to advance with him. The protagonist then thinks that this whole situation was quite normal in the demon realm. The other hunters see the two and cheer excitedly that support has finally arrived. Meanwhile, the short-haired girl gathers the others and prevents them from advancing alone. In the meantime, the dark tentacles attack the group of heroes, who defend themselves as best they can. From a distance, the giant eye observes the battle and controls the attacks with its red tentacles. The protagonist gets irritated as he notices the direction of one of the tentacles. Nori was bravely fighting against the minions of the giant eye and did not notice the danger. The winged hero then flies at high speed and shouts for the girl to dodge the attack. She looks up in surprise, just as the tentacle is about to hit her. She closes her eyes, fearing the worst, but when she opens them, she sees her master. He had protected her with his wings and told her that he had instructed the blonde to dodge. The young man feels weak over his subordinate, who's frightened by her master's situation. He then says that he could crush that deity if he could use his magic there. Suddenly, a black star appears in the sky and begins to shine strangely. The hero looks up the sky and is shocked to feel a familiar energy approaching. He spreads his wings and says that finally his power has returned to him. His hand regenerates and glows with a green energy. The blonde girl is frightened and asks what that energy surrounding her master is. The hero tells her that she will see as he places his hand on her head and teleports her. Nori asks what that was, but then she is teleported before finishing her question. With a smile, he extends his hand and says that his magic has finally returned completely. Meanwhile, the other hunters run desperately trying to escape the shadowy tentacles. But the shadows are faster and begin to envelop the heroes who cannot escape. One of the hunters is captured and brutally attacked by the dark creatures surrounding him. From a distance, the eye monster observes the scene with indifference while its minions destroy everything. The other heroes look at the scene in shock, not knowing what to do in this desperate situation. Anderson drops his sword as he sees the army of minions coming in his direction and surrounding him, already fearing his end. Then he looks back, realizing something. As the creatures surround him, he sees the protagonist talking to his subordinate. Then the young man whispers just a single word, teleport. The Valkyrie leader, who was about to be attacked by the tentacles, disappears. Lei Feng, who was about to be attacked by the minions, disappears. Gao Lin, who was trapped inside a strange cocoon, also disappears. Anderson, who was already expecting his end when caught by the creatures, also disappears. All the hunters were teleported, and now Taeyang faces the giant eye god. He then looks at the creature and says that it is quite strong while his green energy glows. With his wings spread, he faces the creatures that leap to attack him from all sides. The young man smiles and decides to focus his attack only on the main enemy, ignoring the others. A green aura of power surrounds his body as he prepares to use his magic. He then casts a spell called Eclipse that suddenly makes the sun go dark in the sky. The shadow caused by the spell makes the dark creatures dissolve and vanish. They scream in pain as they are consumed by the magical flames that burn them alive. The giant eye growls as the young man asks where a being he cannot drain mana came from. With a cold gaze, the protagonist stares at the monster and says that now is its time to die. Immense shadows spread across the ground as the hero releases his magical energy. The sky darkens completely and the eclipse completes above the monster, which begins to disintegrate. A sphere of darkness emerges in place of the sun, with a crown of fire around it. Suddenly, the scene changes and the hero finds himself in a frozen landscape under a dark sky. A portal opens, releasing all the teleported hunters in a safe location. The blonde apprentice shouts for her master, but he's not there. Her colleague also looks confused by the situation and wonders what is happening. The blonde's friend asks where they are, and she replies that they are 100 kilometers away. Anderson then turns and asks worriedly about the whereabouts of the Korean hero. The apprentice responds with a frightened expression that it seems her master is still there. With that, one of the hunters panics and wonders if the winged young man did not survive. Nori gets irritated by the question and points her sword at the man who looks scared. With a serious look, Anderson tells his companion to stop that if he wants to stay on the team. The blonde apologizes for her friend's behavior and tells everyone to keep moving. He then remembers seeing the hero using magic to heal himself and teleport them away. At that, the apprentice confirms that her master said to meet again soon. The group leader is confused because he thought the young man was a warrior and not a mage. The short-haired woman says she wants to return to the battle site and asks if there is a way. The man named Gao Lin replies that helicopters are coming and he intends to use them. The girls ask if they can go along to check on their master's situation. Then they bow and politely ask the man to let them accompany him. Gao Lin thinks that having such a strong ally is good and agrees to take them with him. Elsewhere, a hooded man observes the destruction and says that this is magic. He stares at the eclipse in the sky, impressed by the scale of the power that was used there. Erin approaches and says that things in China have gotten out of control. She says they need to find out who the mage is that resisted the great magic used. The hooded man orders that they contact Benjamin and find out the intentions of that mage. At that, the woman asks what they should do about Gandharva and if there is any problem. She explains that Gandharva is furious with the Korean hero for interfering with his mission. The hooded leader tells him to wait because the situation in China is already over. With that, the woman leaves and the man thinks that he cannot ruin the plans now. Back in battle, the sky clears and the protagonist commands someone to show themselves. In that moment, a small shadowy creature with a mask appears before him. The being kneels before the hero and greets him as his king with respect. The young man then tells the servant to lift his head and looks at him seriously. The subordinate explains that he does not know where the others are as he only felt the protagonist's presence. Understanding the situation, the protagonist orders his servant to open the gate immediately. The servant obeys and a portal of darkness emerges from the ground right in front of the protagonist. Immediately, the young man is sucked into the portal, crossing a tunnel of purple energy. Soon after, the scene changes and we see a luxurious throne room with golden details. That the young man appears seated on the throne in a relaxed manner with his legs crossed. So the video ends here. If you don't want to miss the next part, activate the notification bell and see you next time on Tob's channel.